All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. We're on the air, so be on your best behavior. People on Zoom, please be aware that we know you're there, and we look forward to having you discuss with us tonight anything that you have. I want to start off by welcoming the Executive Director of the district here, Mr. Drew Bartlett, and Drew will open the meeting for us. And thank you, Drew, for being here.
Haven't missed a meeting yet. I appreciate it. This is a great forum. I always look forward to it. The presentations are great. The opportunities are great for recreation, and everybody pulls in the same direction. So it's a really fun meeting for me. It's a lot better than talking about water levels and all the different things that we really have to gnash our teeth about. So I look forward to the meeting. Thanks everyone for coming and being here. Look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Drew, and thanks to the district for giving us a great facility here and all the people and care it takes to do these meetings. I think we're into about 17 years now. Guys, 17 years, is that about right? Yeah. And I know there's a lot of us got gray hair that didn't have gray hair when we started this thing. So, okay, welcome. It's nice to have so many here in person tonight. This is probably the biggest crowd we've had since COVID. And glad to see everybody. And also, we have a full agenda. And be sure to turn your phones off, which I just did. That so you won't be embarrassed, as I am occasionally. And as you know, this is an open roundtable forum. We start each meeting by simply going around and introducing everybody that's here, please. Just who you are and who you might represent, because a lot of people represent clubs and hikers, bikers, hunters, anglers, whoever. And if you have a brief comment, we will take that right now, just a brief comment. But there will be a time later in the meeting when we will be interested if you have a longer comment about things that you want to talk about that are not on the agenda. But right now, it's just this is who I am, this is why I'm here, and that kind of stuff. Okay? In Zoom land, all you have to do is raise your hand. I think everybody is pretty well used to that now. When history is written, there will be a sentence that will go down as the sentence of the 2020s, and that sentence will be, "Can you hear me now?" Because, yes, we can hear you, and we will let you know. Okay, Drew's already introduced himself, so we'll start to the left there.
Stephen Collins, Director of Real Estate and Land Management for the Water Management District.
Good evening, Rory Feeney, Land Resources Bureau Chief for the Water Management District.
Danny Brantley, member of KRVSA Club.
Good evening, Brad Wyrock, President of Kissimmee River Valley Sportsman.
From the Storm Track 9 weather team, lightning has been detected.
Danny Brantley didn't turn his phone down. And the Florida Airboat Association.
Donnie Harp, representing KRVSA.
Bishop Wright with the Florida Sportsman's Conservation Association and the Florida Airboat Association.
Billy Boatwright, Florida Sportsman's Conservation Association.
Joe Rabina, Florida Sportsman's Conservation Association.
Mark Rivard, Florida Sportsman's Conservation Association.
Shelley Rivard, FSCA.
Jamie Sheeler, Arthur R. Marshall, Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge.
Hi, Rolf Olson, Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge.
Hi, Veronica Kelly, Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge, and I will be presenting the refuge update today.
Good evening, Mark Dombrowski, Florida Sportsman, and I do have a comment. Drew, I think as Newton had said, we've been here about 17 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're the first executive director that has been with us more than one meeting. So thank you, really thank you. We appreciate everything you've done for us and hopefully you'll stay with us for a lot longer.
Kerry Garceau, FSCA.
Emily Johnson, Office of Counsel with the district.
Brian Garrett, South Florida Water Management District, Wildlife Coordinator.
James Harbaugh, Rec Planner, South Florida Water Management.
Steve Coughlin, Land Stewardship Section Administrator, South Florida Water Management District.
Mike Cheek, I'm a Recreation Project Manager with the district.
Jeff Buck, Project Manager for Loxahatchee River Watershed Restoration Project.
Dan Cotter, Section Leader for the district.
Molly Brown, South Florida Water Management District.
Yvette Bonilla, South Florida Water Management District.
Eddie Perry, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Fisheries.
Jeanette Henderson, the equestrian campground host.
Jamie Wilson, Florida Horsemen's Association.
Push the little button.
Kathy LaMartina, South Florida Water Management District.
Sherry McCorkle, South Florida Water Management District.
Zach Welch, South Florida Water Management District.
Miller, Florida Trail Association.
Okay, have we got everybody? Thank you. The reason that we ask you to be on the mic is this is all put on YouTube, and the blank spots are very noticeable when you're not on the mic. And you can go on the district website and just click on meetings and click on the YouTube, and you can actually see this meeting. In fact, it's usually up the next day lately, so it's been very quick. Okay, our first presenter today is an overview of the Florida Horsemen's Club, and Jamie Wilson, Vice President of the Florida Horsemen's Club. And thank you very much for coming. And we look forward to your presentation.
Okay. All right, here we go. I am Jamie Wilson with Florida Horsemen's Club. We are a horsey club, equestrian club located in Jupiter Farms, Florida. That doesn't mean our membership is only in Jupiter Farms. It is all over Florida, mostly the Tri-County area, but we do have members outside. So we are a trail riding club and camping, and we have other fun activities too, but mostly trail riding. We were established in September of 2011, and I was one of the founding members. There's one of our group events. We used to have red shirts that had gated trail riders on them because we changed our name 2 years ago, I believe. And then now we have mauve shirts. I wore my shirt on Sunday because we had a trail ride, so it didn't get washed, so I'm wearing another shirt. So the vision of our club is to provide an enjoyable, social, safe, and responsible platform in horsemanship for our club members, and of course our community as well. We promote horse-friendly knowledge and skill both on and off the trail. We are dedicated to the welfare of both horse and rider and also to those of us around us. We strive to gain the respect of our community by providing proper guidelines on horse etiquette to our members. So some of the activities that we do, we have twice monthly activities, which entails camping and fun events, such as the picture there. So Group rides are in Lucky Buck, which is also the slough, Dupuy, Nine Gems, Cypress Preserve, Riverbend, Atlantic Ridge, Jonathan Dickinson, Jim Brandon, Hickory Hammock, Bluefield Ranch, Allapattah Flats, and many others. Too many to name, really. But we do mostly stay in Florida. Camping, we have been to Kissimmee Prairie, Dupuy, of course, many, many times, since that's our backyard. Shangri-La, Alafia River, Black Prong, Ross Prairie, Hickory Hammock, Fechtel, and others. Some of the activities that we do, we have a treasure hunt on horseback. We have an annual poker run that we hold in Dupuy. That's our big fundraising event of the year. We have a Halloween ride that's coming up. We call it Halloween in the Hood. So we all get dressed up, we dress our horses up, and we ride around our community and have fun. The kiddies love us. We do a Loxahatchee canoe trip in the summer, and if you can, we do not bring our horses in on that event, because I'm sure you can imagine a horse trying to get in a kayak or a canoe, right? Might be kind of funny. We have progressive brunch rides. We have a very good turnout for those. So what happens there is, it's my phone, sorry. What happens on the progressive brunch ride, we usually get 5 stops, and each stop will have an appetizer and a beverage. And we stay usually for 30 minutes or so, and then we ride on to the next stop. We usually have a map of where we're going. We have derby parties for all of the derbies, the races. We have bonfire parties. We have pool parties. And no, the horses aren't invited to the pool party either. We do bowling, and we participate in the Jupiter Farms Christmas Parade. We occasionally do full moon rides when the full moon is lovely. And we participate in the Ocean to Lake Ride, 3-day event. So there's just some nice pictures of some of the events that we do. Jupiter Farms Parade, you can tell. The year that picture is, we won first place. It's what's it called? Anyway, can't even think of it. The obstacle course, we do cleanup of Jupiter Farms Road, and then of course there's the bridge, the tunnel that goes underneath 95 and the Turnpike to get to Jonathan Dickinson. So we also have annual donations. The reason that we hold our annual poker run is to be able to, of course, pay our insurance and do those things, but to be able to donate to different communities and clubs and organizations, usually close to our area. So twice we have given to Hope's Horses and Dreams, or Hope's Dreams and Horses, sorry. We have given to Vince Ramos Riding Academy. We've given to ERAF. We've given to Big Dog Ranch and Bush Wildlife. Vince Ramos and Hope's Dreams and Horses are both therapeutic riding organizations for the mentally challenged or disabled, so we like giving to them. It's a picture of us giving a donation. So volunteering. We have, since our onset, have volunteered for trail cleanup and marking. So we'll either ride our horses to do that, or hike, or if we're allowed, taking a side-by-side. And it consists of trimming branches and painting and marking and doing all those things that make a trail a trail. So we've been in Lucky Buck to clean up, Cypress Preserve to mark the trails. We have helped mark and clean and clear the OTL trails, as well as Dupuy. We adopted a road for a portion of Jupiter Farms Road. So quarterly, we go and pick up trash to keep it clean. And we've also volunteered for the restoration of the barns and the paddocks in Dupuy on multiple occasions. That's the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Comments? You want to join? It's only $20. $20 a year. I have membership forms. All right, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yes?
Hey, Jamie, I just wanted to express our appreciation for all the volunteer work that you do out at Dupuy, maintaining the barns and the stalls. I know you work with James pretty
Yes.
closely. And
And
that's
Jeanette.
That's a great help to us,
Thank
to
you.
have an organization that's willing.
We've been
to do
doing
that.
it for years, and, we enjoy those trails so much that it's worth it for us to participate and keep it going.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's a very good presentation. Don't leave yet. Don't. We will probably have some other questions, possibly have some other questions. Thank you again very much. We're putting a microphone back in the back there since we have an overload crowd. And just pass that microphone around if anybody has any comments, questions. We operate this as a roundtable discussion, even though we get overflow today. And that means after every presentation, we look to anyone here who has a comment, just raise your hand. And also on Zoom, raise your hand, and you will be recognized. We don't have a 3-minute time limit, but I have a soft gavel, because we don't want to run too late. We're always out here by 8 o'clock. So any questions or comments to the lady as we start here to the left? Anyone at the table have a question? In the back, is anyone back there? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Jamie, I just wanted to ask, is there anything more that the South Florida Water Management District and some of the other people that are affiliated with the wilderness can help to help this be more equestrian friendly? Or is there more that you can do to help them open up more areas to equestrians that may not be open now or may need expansion?
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Sorry, Jeanette Henderson.
Well, I don't know that there's really anything more. We have an abundance of trails, and they're fairly well maintained. And I understand that there are times when we trail ride and the trails aren't maybe mowed or cleared, and that's probably mostly weather permitting, because if it rains a lot, the machinery cannot get in there very well. So we understand that. We try to ride as much as possible because that helps the trails as well. As far as more trails or more access, I think we're doing really well. We love our trails. I don't have a wish list.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? Any hands raised?
No, sir, no hands are raised.
Okay. I just want to say the ocean to the lake. We had a presentation here on that ride, and perhaps sometime in the future after that ride, we'd look forward to having you guys come show us the slides and comments of what you do on that. That's an incredible operation. So thank you very much.
You're very
I appreciate
welcome.
everything.
Hold on, Jamie, I have one hand raised.
Okay,
Margaret
here comes
England?
Hi, Margaret.
Please unmute.
Know if people online would be able to check in too, so for the record, we'd be on the record.
Miss England, we didn't catch that. Did you have a question?
Okay, I was just wanting to know if the people online will be included in the roll of attendees today.
We'll have a report. Yes, we will have a report.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Okay, sorry, Todd, go ahead.
If the roll will be considered Zoom, the people that are on Zoom, will they be on the roll call?
Like we went around and announced ourselves.
Yes, it is a live meeting, so if she states her name, it will be recorded.
I think that was the question, not if there was going to be a report afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Clarifying.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. It's a good question. We consider the people on Zoom just as important as the people that are here. And when we did the roundtable here, introducing ourselves and whatever, we really probably should have opened it up to the Zoom people who want to introduce yourself. And if you'll simply just raise your hand, Yvette will see that you're recognized right now, and you'll be able to introduce yourself. You can be assured your name is already on the list as attending the meeting. So if anyone has any comment out there in Zoom land and want to introduce yourself, now's the time to raise your hand.
We have Mr. Paul Gray, followed by Margaret England. Okay, Mr. Gray lowered his hand. Ms. England, can go ahead.
Okay, just Margaret England, Vice President Henry Glades Audubon, and I've been a volunteer for South Florida Water Management District since 2005.
Thank you.
What we can do is we can look into, we can see all their names on the list of Zoom, and I imagine there might be a way we can record everybody that patched in via Zoom and have that available.
Mr. Bartlett and committee, yes, my name is Rosie Bird, and I'm the district clerk of the South Florida Water Management District. So when a participant who is participating by Zoom registers for their link, we get a report the next day of everyone who had registered for a Zoom link. So we do have that report, and that's what Yvette meant about a report. And then if they comment, their name and organization will be reflected in the minutes.
Great, thank you, Rosie. Scott Lima. Mr. Lima,
Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Scott Lima, I'm with the Florida Sportsman.
Did you have a question or just announcing? Thank you. Dr. Reinhardt?
Hey, Tom Reinert, Regional Director for Florida Fish and Wildlife. Just let you know, I'm observing and not there in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Vosquin?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Steve Bosquin. I'm project manager for the Kissimmee River Restoration Evaluation Program. And I'm here to answer any follow-up questions after Mike's presentation on the restoration project.
Okay, thank you very much. And you will just raise your hand during the meeting, even though you might not have listed yourself as being here. We know you're here, and you will be listed, as the lady said. And so as we go through the meeting, just raise your hand, and you will be recognized. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an update on the Arthur R. Marshall Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge implementation of the Visitor Services Plan and Hunt Program. Veronica Kelly, park ranger with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, will do the presentation. Thank you very much. As someone who has hunted and fished on Loxahatchee Wildlife Refuge for 21 years, I think now, it is an incredible place. It is a difficult place to manage. It is not easy. Anything out there is difficult, but it is great hunting, great fishing, and the new hunt plan has just been really, really welcomed and appreciated. So thank you, Kelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Veronica Kelly, and I'm a park ranger at the Arthur R. Marshall Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. I work in the Visitor Services Department, and I'm going to be presenting an update on our Visitor Services Plan and a hunting update. So welcome to Loxahatchee. We just actually got through our annual reporting, and we've had over 1 million visitors every year for the past several years. The refuge is over 220 square miles, and it ranges all the way from Loxahatchee and West Palm area down to Boynton Beach and all the way down to West Boca and Parkland. So our visitor center and headquarters is at the Boynton entrance, and if anybody's never visited, you should. We're also part of the Urban Wildlife Conservation Program, and to be an urban refuge, that means that you're within 25 miles of a population center of 250,000 or more. And believe it or not, we are within a 1-hour drive of over 6 million people. So it gives us a great opportunity to reach a lot of different communities and just welcome everybody onto the refuge, and also go into the towns and kind of bring the refuge to everybody else. So on the refuge, we have so many recreation opportunities and amazing habitat like cypress swamps and wet prairies, sawgrass and sloughs and tree islands. And there's over 50 miles of hiking, biking, and paddling trails for everybody to enjoy those habitats. We also offer opportunities for birding and wildlife viewing and photography. We have duck, coot, alligator, deer, and hog hunting. Fishing opportunities, we have bank fishing, fishing from the piers and by boat, and boating in over 140,000 acres. And well over 58 miles of canals. We allow non-motorized, motorized boats, and airboats by permit. We have areas for pet walking and horseback riding. We have a new rental concessionaire through Loxahatchee Adventures, and I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. And we have opportunities for you to volunteer and get involved also. So first off, I'm going to talk about alligator hunting. And the hunt area for the alligator hunt, so I actually want to, okay. So the area for the alligator hunt is the motorized zone, which is the green area in the lower part of the refuge, and then the perimeter canal that it goes around the edge of the motorized zone. So in 2020, we issued 11 permits. There's a bag limit of 2 per permit, and we harvested 18 alligators, and that was about an 82% success rate. In 2021, we saw those survey numbers drop a little bit, and so we issued 6 permits that year with a 75% success rate. And then in 2022, so this year, we actually did not have a quota because of low survey numbers, and I'm going to talk about that on this next slide. So this is the FWC alligator hunt quota model run that was used to determine the 0 quotas for the 22 alligator hunt. This data is based on 2021 survey data, and the middle graph on the bottom here is the one that was the best fit and the one that they ultimately used. So what's important to look at here is the trend line and not the data points for the year. So the dots are the points. And you can see in past years, the annual data point has been in the red, but the trend line was still in the yellow. So a quota was established for those years. But you can see now that this trend line is down into the red area, and that's why we established the 0 quota. If it moves back into the yellow or green in future years, we will establish a quota for those years. And at this point, the causes for the declines are all under speculation. Ultimately, we need a cumulative impact study to determine how the alligators are moving back and forth and being harvested on the north end. And we're working with FWC to determine the protocols for a study, just so they can provide more information and learn more information about alligator populations on the refuge. Sorry. So next up, I'm going to talk about duck and coot hunting. So the hunt area is the refuge interior. It used to be just this green section down here at the bottom, but we've opened up the whole thing. So you can hunt non-motorized in the whole refuge interior, and then the bottom section is motorized. We're open during all the state hours and seasons. And then for the duck and coot, the phase 2, so the big season between December and January, we have the airboat permits, and you apply through FWC in early September for those. The Struzula deer and hog hunt, we just wrapped up with the 2nd year of that back in August. The bag limit is 1 antlered deer, and it's an archery and crossbow hunt. We added guest permits for 2022, and you apply through that through FWC in May. We have 8 permits available, and then the applicant numbers is right around 2,000 applicants. In 2021, we had 6 hunters present and 1 deer harvested, and this past year we had 5 hunters and no deer harvested. All the hunters expressed that they saw multiple deer, and they were happy for the opportunity to get out there and hunt. So the Refuge Interior Deer Hunt is going to be, this will be the 2nd year. That'll be in early December, and that is in the Refuge Interior, so the yellow and the green section of the map. That is, folks can use non-motorized, so canoes or kayaks, john boats, or airboats by permit. There's, the low water levels, we're looking at a possible closure. I will talk about that more on the next slide. We added guest permits to this hunt also for 2022, and you apply through FWC in May for this hunt. In both years, 2020 and 21 and 22, we had 10 permits available, about 2,000 applicants for each of those. And 2021, we had 3 hunters that showed up, and we had 2 deer harvested. And then this year, we'll know more in December for this year's hunt. So everybody knows that it's not been raining a whole lot lately, and then the past couple weeks we have gotten more rain. But what this slide here shows is it's 2 years worth of data. The black line is where we should be, and then the pink and blue lines are water levels from out in the canal and the interior. So what I want to point out, though, is the downward trend. So I downloaded this right here last week. We got a lot of rain. It has spiked back up a little bit, but this is where we are right now, and this is where we need to be. So if the water levels are low across the Everglades, we may have to close the north end, and that may adversely impact recreation on the refuge, including the fall deer hunt. So what that looks like, the entire refuge interior, I'm going to go back one slide here. So what that looks like would be non-motorized in the whole refuge interior. This is just possible for possible closure. And then airboats by permit would still be allowed in the lower motorized zone, and then john boats, which we added new this year. So I think there's some folks in the crowd on this slide here. Last year was the first year that we implemented the mentored youth and deer and hog hunt. And we're working with FWC's youth hunting program and the volunteer hunt masters to facilitate this hunt. The target audience is ages 12 to 17 who've never hunted before. All the youth have to complete a hunter safety course, and it will this weekend, so they get to camp out on the refuge. One of the hunters from last year, I asked her how, what was the favorite thing that she did, what was your favorite part about the weekend, and she said seeing stars. So it's like, yeah, that was, it wasn't camping, I can't believe that, but seeing the stars, so that was amazing. So this weekend, it teaches them how to hunt safely and ethically and legally, and about firearm safety and tracking and processing game. It's an amazing program, and thanks to the folks that are involved in that. And we are recruiting for that right now. It's on FWC's events calendar, and it's also on our website. And this photo over here on the right-hand side is the group from last year. So airboat permits for hunting. We've had the alligator hunt, duck and coot hunt, and the deer hunt. If you have been drawn for the alligator hunt or deer hunt, then you can contact refuge staff and go through the airboat permit process to get issued a permit. So the alligator hunt, 2020, we issued one permit, 2021, 1 permit, and then the 0 permits for 22. The duck and coot hunt airboat permit, the first year we did that, we were doing the drawing locally in the office, and we received 7 applications, and there's 5 permits that are issued for the duck and coot hunt, or 5 permits available for the duck and coot hunt. And so we issued those 5 permits. And then in 2021, we partnered with FWC to do the drawing, and there were 296 applicants, and 5 permits were available, and 2 permits were issued. And then for this year, we're waiting on the numbers. I've had 2 people reach out to me today for this upcoming season, so that's exciting. And then the deer hunt airboat permit for last year, so last December, there were 2 airboat permits issued. So the non-hunting airboats by permit the area is the green section. It's about 14,000 acres at the bottom of the map. And that is July through November, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, outside of duck and coot seasons. If anybody's interested in that, you submit your applications in the 1st of May, and the information is all available on the motorized boating page on our website. So we've had 10 permits available for each of those years. We received 18 applications the first year, 10 applications the second year, and 2 applications this year, and 1 permit has been issued. So leftover permits are available on a first-come, first-served basis. So on to boating. I kind of already touched on this. We allow them non-motorized boats, motorized boats, and airboats by permit. The most important thing on this slide is just the reminder that all boats operating outside of the perimeter canal into the refuge interior must fly a 10-inch by 12-inch orange flag at least 10 feet above the vessel's waterline. And that's for everybody's safety from opening up the whole refuge interior. So there could be canoers and kayakers out there, and it's just better safety for everyone. And we have over 140,000 acres open to fishing. That's in over 60 miles of trails that provide access to bank fishing. You can go bow fishing or fish gigging year-round on the refuge. Frog gigging is July 16th through March 15th. And we have areas for horseback riding. So the green from there's the 362 pump station all the way around the refuge over to the S6 pump station. It's about 36 miles that are open to horseback riding. And you can park at the Hillsborough area or the headquarters area to access the perimeter levee. And there is no horseback riding in the A, B, and C impoundments over here by the headquarters area. And pet walking is the exact same area as horseback riding. The map looks a little different, but it's the same. The pets have to be on a leash into designated areas, maximum of 2 pets per visitor, and everybody is responsible for cleaning up their pet's waste. We do charge an entrance fee to go to the refuge. The daily pass is $10, annual pass is $25. We sell federal duck stamps at the refuge, and we're also part of the interagency pass program. So that's a national program that if you can buy a pass, and it's good across the whole United States at over 2,000 different places. And then in the last couple of years, we've actually gotten onto recreation.gov, so you can actually buy a pass for the refuge from the comfort of your own couch. So that's pretty cool. And we have a new concessionaire as of about a year ago. And so there's rentals available at the headquarters area and the Hillsborough entrances. So that's another really cool thing. Right now they're renting canoes, kayaks, and john boats, and they're selling snacks. And they're going to expand in the future to include selling fishing licenses and bait and have guided tours and a whole lot more. And I'm going to go kind of fast here. So the recent updates to the infrastructure, the biggest thing that we're planning on doing right now is raising the observation tower down at the Lee Road boat ramp that's going to look out into the Everglades from our headquarters entrance. And then at Hillsborough area, we are installing underground drainage system under the parking lot there and regrading the lot. So hopefully the water flows off the lot quicker or better and reduces the potholes down there. And we've got a lot of other projects going on, rebuilding the boardwalk to the photo blind, replacing signs and kiosks. We were closed during the pandemic for a while, and during that time we got all the exhibits in the visitor center clean and spiffy. And we went through the Lee Road repaving process within the last year, and so Lee Road, the boat ramps, and the parking lot has all been repaved. And we installed speed tables to help try to calm the traffic on Lee Road. And upcoming infrastructure, we've got multiple things in the works right now. So the first thing that we want to do is to construct a fishing pier down at the Hillsborough area. And then for Strazula, parking lots, fishing pier, trail system, and canoe launch to help with better access to Strazula. And then we still want to construct a trail that connects the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Preserve with the L40 levee. And when we're still working on camping. So then that's still dependent on the construction on the west side of the refuge. And then we also want to install camping platforms at the south end of the refuge that you would actually boat out to and stay on overnight. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, Veronica, thank you very much. as I've said, I've watched a lot of sunrises on the refuge, and it's just a beautiful place. It is too dry, particularly the northern part gets too dry. And there's a concern, of course, about how much water it will be getting in the future as we go through the changes in the lake schedule. The alligators, I can tell you where they are because it is dry. The alligators are in STA 1 East, and it looks like Africa over there along the rivers, along the banks. And we had a great youth hunt out there, and thanks to the district and for the help to get that done. And we'll probably have more as we go along. So we're open now for here in the room, questions or comments to Veronica. Be sure to use the microphone. Yes, sir. Would you come forward? And there's a mic back there somewhere. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Push on the little button and hold it down.
And Wager
Thank
the
you.
Hunt program. I know last year a friend of mine got the permit for Strizula, but it was not ADA compliant. He was disabled. I'm wondering if there's going to be any changes to that to make it for people to be able to get out to the area a little bit easier that are mobility impaired.
So we are working on the access options. Yeah, it's a hard area to access as it is, but yeah, we're definitely working on access options, and I feel that everything should be, accessible to everybody. So, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Bishop? No, okay.
So, was wondering what we could do for like a redraw for people that, a lot of people apply for the area because it's new and da-da-da, and then all of a sudden they find out how hard the access really is. And I know with FWC, they have a redraw where you could turn your permit back in and give it available for somebody that could use it. And I understand they have that for St. Vincent Island or whatever, but I haven't seen it anywhere else with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And so I really would like to see is somehow we could get where if you're not going to use the permit, you could turn it back in and get or somebody else could put in for the second draw and redraw it or something like that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And this is, we've been doing the hunts for the last 3 years. Well, this will be the third year of the hunts, and we're still figuring it out a little bit on our ends too. We've implemented a lot over the past couple years. We've got some ideas there, just nothing set in stone yet. So I don't really want to speak for the future, but I do hear what you're saying there, and we've been talking internally about that also.
Well, and I applaud y'all for last year, everything y'all put into that hunt. And it was, as a hunter, it was a slap in the face to see 3 hunters show up. Y'all were ready for 50 hunters, and to get 3 hunters is shame on the hunters who drawed. And I look at it and, how many people put in for that permit, and it's a very valuable permit. And I can tell you there's 10 people in this room that give their right arm to go there. So when 9 people don't show up or whatever it is, 7 people don't show up, it's just it's a crime. And really would like to try and see how we could get those people in that area under those permits.
I think, Bishop, you have a very good point. It's one we suffer with throughout all the quota program. As hard as we work to get the hunting program at the refuge over, 10 years at least, I know for me, probably more for you. And it's just a sign of the times. I think also it's new. A lot of people apply who've never intended. And I think with time, the participation rate will increase. I really do. I feel that. But yes, if you had a way to turn back in your permit if you weren't going to use it, like the FWC does on their quota program, and that probably should be worked out.
Just real quick, like last year, I knew 2 of the 10. This year I've asked around and asked everybody I know. I know absolutely no one, none of the 10 this year.
Please say your name. I've been reminded to say your name before you make your comment. Thank you.
Brad Wyrock. You know, Veronica, I applaud you. You made a statement that of all the years we've driven down here and these meetings used to rotate, hint. No. We drive quite a while. We believe in this program. The district's been so gracious as to find ways around through COVID and work and work and work. The work that's gone on, everybody at the refuge, the way Rolf interacts with folks is just amazing. But your comment from that young lady, she couldn't believe how many stars there were. She saw stars. That's what we're here for. This is a recreational forum. What a better point to think about and continue to open up areas. You said you're within 1 hour of 6 million people. You don't see stars there. If you do, it's when somebody rear ends you, right? But you don't see stars there. What a more important statement from our youth, tomorrow's leaders, that they're able to go somewhere and experience something like that most people in this room, myself growing up on the KCOL, take for granted. And that's what impressed that young person. What a better reason for us to continue to open up and preserve and protect things so that folks can see stars. That's absolutely astonishing. Thank you for that interaction.
Thank you. You gave me cold chills when you said that. I'm sure like a lot of y'all, I grew up hunting and we take some of that stuff for granted. And that's what got me, you know, I hope she had a great time over the weekend, but the seeing stars thing, that just.
I know from the work that we did, there's staff people who spent 3 years of moving paper and filling out forms and submitting and then resubmitting and moving paper and filling out forms. It's the way of the federal government, we know that. But there's a lot of people put a lot of work, and then to have 3 people show up for a hunt is very disappointing. But I do believe that with time, that will get better. It's just that it's new. I mean, even though 1,000 people apply, 1,000 people really is not a lot when you for an STA hunt. 5,000 will apply for some of those things. All right, anyone else in this room have a comment? And Yvette, how are we on Zoom?
We have 2, Daniel Watson, followed by Mike Elfenbein.
Good evening, everybody. Daniel Watson. Brad and Bishop kind of stole my thunder there, so I won't waste any time just repeating what they said. But Veronica, that was a great presentation, and I just wanted to just show my support and much appreciation for the opportunities that you guys have worked so hard for, the hunting opportunities and the airboat access. Like Newton said, it's a little discouraging, but let's have patience and hopefully we get rolling next year with some more hunters that'll show up, and it is brand new. So as word gets out, hopefully these permits don't go to waste next time. I wasn't able to grab one this year, but just thank you so much for the recreational opportunities and the hunting opportunities, and let's focus on just maintaining them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mike Elfenbein?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Mike Elfenbein, Cypress chapter of the Isaac Walton League. I just wanted to say that's probably one of the best presentations I've ever seen. I get a lot of people spoke ahead of me here, but I just wanted to reiterate some of that sentiment. The system, you don't have to recreate the system to get people's tags back into the cycle. It's pretty common. You ought to be able to work with folks at FWC to implement that. I know they had similar issues with the Panther Refuge last year on that first turkey hunt, but that should be something that's easy enough to remedy to ensure that those tags don't go to waste. But I am very excited at all the work that you guys accomplished to complete that VSP and get that place open to the public. And I know that one day we'll all be sitting around the table saying, man, there's so many people showing up for these hunts. We've got to up the quotas. So thank you guys for all your hard work, Rolf and team, and look forward to the opportunity to spend some time there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I believe that's it. And Veronica, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Great
Nathan.
presentation and all very positive. Okay, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, and this is the Audubon birding tours on district properties. And Brian, there you are. Garrett, the wildlife coordinator of the Water Management District.
All right. Hey, everybody. So I'm Brian Garrett, the wildlife coordinator here at the South Florida Water Management District. Basically means that I'm kind of the guy they go to on a lot of the protected species to make sure that when we're operating and doing what the district needs to do, we're not impacting or minimizing our impact to protected species. So today I'm going to talk about basically some tours that we've been having for many, many years in the STAs that have been really, really popular. Go ahead and get started. So the stormwater treatment areas and flow equalization basins are man-made wetlands, as many of you here know. They're designed to reduce nutrients, primarily phosphorus, from downstream locations. Act as reservoirs for stormwater, and then be able to add some supplemental water when we have it available and it's needed downstream. So we really weren't thinking about these areas as wildlife habitat when they were constructed, but when you construct really, really great habitat, the wildlife's going to show up, and of course, we get lots and lots of birds. It was recognized really early on that the STAs were going to be really great places for all types of recreational activities. Hunting, obviously, hiking and biking, and then all types of wildlife viewing, and of course, including birding out there. And then it also became apparent that the best way to get people out there were going to be to have actually led tours by experts. So we really started working with Henry Glade early on, Margaret England, who announced herself earlier. In 2005, we started working on STA 5-6 being one of the first places we opened up for birding tours for the general public. And STA 5 tours became popular and very, very quickly, and they've remained fairly popular throughout. Of course, led to subsequent agreements with Everglades Audubon for STA 1 East and STA 2. Everglades Audubon is the Audubon chapter in Palm Beach County. And then Martin County Audubon is also, in the past several years, has started leading tours in Lakeside Ranch, and that's just above the Lake Okeechobee. And we've also had A1 FPB open up in 2009, and it's open more just to the general public, but tours have been coordinated by the various Audubon chapters to go in there, and it's become a big birding hotspot, as all of these have. So what Audubon does for these tours, and what we've agreed to, is that they advertise these tours out to the general public. And what that really means is they are making sure that it's not just Audubon members that are getting in there to get these tours. This is open to the general public so that they are leading anyone who wants to get out there and see birds. And of course, they have volunteers with the Audubon chapters, and they help organize the tours. They get tour guides in place, make sure that they have everything in place for every tour date that they have in place, and they run the tours from there, which includes keeping the groups together, making sure that people aren't, in some cases, wandering all over the place. Make sure that the people stick to the areas that are open to the public as opposed to going into areas that might not be actually available to them at that time. And then, of course, big thing they do is make sure everybody's out at the end of the day so that, because all of these areas are closed off with gates. So if, you close it all off and there's somebody left out there, then someone's going to have to come out to let them out later. So that's one of the major things they do is make sure that they are letting them out. We also have tours that are allow for people, well, the really big thing about these tours is that it does allow people to drive out into these STAs. Because you can, in most of the STAs, there is some sort of public activity where you can go out there, hike and bike, and you can go out there and bird on your own and everything, but being able to bring like a vehicle with you, you can bring a lot of equipment like a scope and a tripod, and it would be difficult to get all that out there on a bike, even possibly more difficult on foot. So it really makes for a better birding experience. We do have some photographic tours that are offered through each of the chapters, and that essentially makes sure that it actually allows for some of the individual photographers to kind of go out on their own to a certain extent. And of course, their big thing there is just making sure everybody gets back to the gates when they've been told that the gates are closing. So now I'm going to cover each of the areas that we have open currently real quick, just to kind of give a quick overview. STA 56, as I mentioned before, is Henry Glades Audubon, is the chapter that operates those tours. And it's been going on since 2005. Over 230 species have been identified in this area, which makes it a really, really good birding hotspot. And some of the cool species that they've seen over the years have included like the tropical kingbird, smooth-billed awney, crested caracara, and some really large flocks of white pelicans that'll show up out there. So you can see on this map, you see it well here, that currently the current access to STA 56 is the southern end of Blumberg Road. And that is because over, I don't know if you can see, you probably can't see that. Over on the west side of STA 56, we do have a public use area that's over there, but Deer Fence Canal's been currently closed off for construction for what's probably going to be another year or so. So we always have alternate entrances into these locations, and currently we're just using that north entrance of the STA at Blumberg. There's also an entrance to the south, and that is really just open to hikers only. It's actually part of the Florida Trail. Now you can see, I listed here at the bottom of each of these maps how large these areas are. So STA 56 is approximately 16,000 acres, and a great deal of it is actually open for birding. So it really gives a lot of area, and the more area you're able to sort of cover when you're looking for birds, the more likely you're to see more species. So, easily a tour can go through there and get 50 species in a trip. So, and in a lot of trips, I've seen some trips where they've gotten up to 60, 70 species. So, usually people walk away from these STA birding tours pretty happy. So STA 1 East birding tours, they're operated by Everglades Audubon, and they've been conducted since 2012. Over 170 species have been identified in this STA, and we've had some really cool species such as least terns and roseate spoonbills, which are both state-listed protected species. And then some rare species like white-tailed kites have shown up in these areas, and then probably one of the prettiest birds that we have in the state, the purple gallinule, is definitely, there's lots of locations within that STA where they reside. Access to STA 1 East is right off of Flying Cow Road, which is just basically right off of State Road 80, or basically Southern Boulevard there. And there are actually two entrances into STA 1 East. There's a public use area that's right in the center of the top part of it there, if you look on the map. But that area is only going to provide access to hiking and biking for people to get in there. So everyone sort of meets on that the northeast corner, and the tours sort of take off from there. And they really just go around just one or two cells in there, and that really covers most of the best birding that's out there. And you see this area is a little bit smaller at 5,000 acres, but still this humongous, wetland out there. As everybody probably here knows, these stormwater treatment areas are some of the largest man-made wetlands that have ever been attempted. So they are just amazing amounts of wildlife that can show up out in these areas. Lakeside Ranch, those tours are operated by Martin County Audubon, and they've been going since 2014. We have over 180 species that have been identified in this STA, and some of the really cool species notable species, I'll say, that have been seen in this location include American bald eagles, which we actually have 2 nests that are within the STA itself. One nest is actually within the STA. The other one's just sort of visible from the STA. But we also get a lot of Florida sandhill cranes. They show up in some of the other STAs too, but being that this is north of the lake, they're more numerous in Lakeside Ranch. There's some locations where we have Florida burrowing owls just outside of the STA, and bobolinks will come through there during migration every year, and they're a lot of fun once you get a group of them and just sitting there listening to them call. They'll only around for a couple of days, but it's one location that they definitely do come through. And Lakeside Ranch, we actually have two access entrances, I should say, into the STA, but we're really encouraging everyone to use the access area that's right off of US 98, and that's also US 441, because it's newer. It has a nice bathroom in comparison to the like porta toilets in the further north access area. And it has a really nice sort of open parking lot, and it's just a nice area overall. And you can see this is a much smaller area than either of those other STAs I mentioned before at only 1,700 acres. But you get some really cool stuff here just because there is a woodland preserve in between the north part of the STA and the south part of the STA. There was a preserve of forest that was kept in the middle. And of course, that's where one of the eagles' nests are, and it kind of creates for a little bit more diversity with the birds that are out there. STA 2, these tours are operated by Everglades Audubon, and they started in 2016 primarily because of the bird that's sitting right next to it, the American flamingo. Flamingos have been notable in this area for many, many years. And we had a group of, I think it was 147 show up. I think it was in 2004 or 5. And that really drew a lot of attention. So we had people that were just kind of walking in, wanted to see the birds and everything. And so we had a discussion with Everglades Audubon. It's like, hey, would you guys like to maybe sort of control the flow of people in there? And so it's actually been a fairly popular area. The flamingos, sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. So it's this past year they did show up. Wasn't 147 of them, but at one point we had, I think, as many as 12 out there, so that was pretty good. We've had over 150 species that have been identified in STA 2. And of course, some of the notable species there are the flamingo. We have several peregrine falcons that will overwinter in the STA. Some areas of large groups of black skimmers that'll show up out there with a lot of other shorebirds. And everyone really gets excited about seeing fulvous whistling ducks on the tours, so I mentioned them here. So the access to STA 2 is right off of US 27 between mile markers 50 and 51. Basically, you would just go over a little bridge that's in between those two mile markers, and then just turn to the north. There is additional public access to this area if you go south when you go over that bridge. But there's actually no hiking and biking allowed in STA 2 at this time. And you can see that this area is nearly the size of STA 5-6. And finally, we have A1 FEB Burning Tours. Now, we don't have agreements completely set up on this one. So mostly the Audubon chapters have all sort of individually organized their own trips to go in there, but the area is open over the weekends from Friday to Sunday for everybody. And so it's been a pretty popular location. It's been a very popular location, actually. But burning tours have been occurring since 2019, and over 160 species have been identified, making it yet another birding hotspot. So some of the species of interest in this area would be like the Everglades snailkite, loggerhead shrikes. There have been some black rails, which is a new federally listed threatened species that have been, you can hear them to the outside of the FEB at certain times of the year. And then we get a lot of nesting by ground nesters such as killdeer out there. So we try to encourage everybody to watch out when they're driving around out there, because little fuzzballs with legs might be running all over the place. So we try to encourage everybody to keep your speeds down and watch for these little birds that cannot fly yet. So the A1 FEB is really close. It's right across the street, literally, from STA 2. It's between mile markers 52 and 53 on US 27. As I mentioned before, it's open to the public from Friday to Sunday. Currently, what's open to the public is basically the entire eastern side, the southern side, and about the southern half of the western side. The rest of it's been closed off because of the A2 construction, which is the A2 reservoir and STA that's further to the west, and it's being used, that road is currently being used as a construction route. So there's still a lot of roads out there available as far as miles. When the whole thing's open, it's over 21 miles, I think, around. So we've taken out a few of those miles, but there's still tons of area for everybody to spread out and see all sorts of stuff out there. So in conclusion, these have been really successful. This working with the Audubon chapters have been a really big success, and we have gotten literally thousands upon thousands of people out into the stormwater treatment areas and FEBs. And when I say thousands of people, I'm talking about people here within the state, Floridians, but also people come from all over the country. People come from all over the world to see some of the birds that we have out there. So it's been actually a lot of fun, because I've actually gotten to do some of the tours myself as a tour guide, and it's fun to see them see some of these things for the first time. And on top of all of that, it gives us a chance to not just talk about, hey, look at all the birds and everything, but it gives us a chance to talk about our projects that we have with the Water Management District. And people get to see basically some of the restoration projects. They actually get to get out into them and see the benefits of them that are even beyond the benefits that they were built for. So here we have a bunch of links. I think that this presentation can be found on the website. These links, I believe, I hope that they'll get you to places where you could register for some of these tours through Everglades Audubon, Henry Glades Audubon, Martin County Audubon. So, any questions?
Okay, before the questions, I'm going to tell a little story. In 2004, I was sitting right there, and the Audubon lady was sitting right there at the RAC meeting, and those days, RAC actually discussed issues, and you voted. United Waterfowlers was looking at SDA 5, which was brand new, full of ducks, and there was no public access, and there was no intention of ever having public access to the SDAs at that time. We were lobbying pretty hard to get to those ducks. And April Grumlick, who was the Audubon lady at the time, she was lobbying pretty hard to get the bird watchers out. And I'll never forget, we had a conversation. I said, April, I'll get you Saturday if you'll get me Sunday. And United Waterfowlers got one Sunday morning for 10 Sundays, and Audubon get to run their tours on Saturdays. Of course, we did that because we didn't want to burn the birds off with all the shooting. Now, 25 permits, 2 people. That was 500 people got to go hunting a year on the SDAs. Those permits were like gold. Audubon ran some fantastic and started their program. And you see what it's involved to. You see what a little thing, you talk about the refuge, you see how a little thing over 20 years can become a big thing. We have thousands of people bird watching and hunting on these properties today. And it all came from the hunters, United Waterfowlers, and the bird watchers cooperating. That's a good lesson. I really believe that. So with that little story from an old man, we'll open up the forum here. Anybody here have any comments? Okay, and the Zoom land, how are we doing?
Yes, we do, sir. We have Mike Elfenbein.
Hey guys, that was a fantastic presentation. Newton, it's kind of hard to go last because most people pick up on the same things. But as I was listening to the presentation, and you were explaining how it was so convenient to drive a vehicle with your tripod and your camera, and I started thinking about hunters, and hunters have the same issue, right? We got a tripod, and we got decoys, and we got a vest and ammunition, and it sure is nice to have access on those levees with the vehicle, and in other places with off-road vehicles. So I completely relate to the birders' concerns, and thank you to the district for providing as much access as you guys do to the general public. You go above and beyond most of the time, and it's very welcome. So thank you.
Thank you. We have Paul Gray.
Hi, folks. Paul Gray from Audubon. Yeah, I don't know if Margaret England is still on the phone or on the call. I bet she is. But she was really the pioneer with Henry Glades Audubon that started these tours over on STA 5-6. And she even got an ambassador award from the Water Management District or something like that. And so, as Mike said, Florida's world famous for birds and the Everglades and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how many people from how many nations have been in these tours, but as also mentioned, even if you're infirm and don't have good health, you can just sit there in your car and look out the window and just have a fabulous experience and see lots of stuff. So anyway, we really thank the district for working with our chapters. They are not paid. Unlike me, they are all volunteers and citizens of their communities. So it's really been a fulfilling thing to watch them be able to be involved with you guys and for you to show off your great projects. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?
Mr. Gray, did you have you have your hands raised?
I'm sure that was.
Oh, sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, very much. Okay, anyone else? Yes, yes, sir. Who's here?
Hi, I'm BJ Katel, and I could not stop. I just woke up because first time I forgot to raise my hand. Since I was involved right from the beginning, and Margaret England and all the SDA 5, and all these good things Brian has already talked about. Besides that, what I also wanted to let you all know is there have been so many foreign dignitaries visiting our STAs, which they knew through our birding program. And one time I remember a mayor, one of the cities in France, came to see our STA, and I took him to STA 5, and he was so impressed, and he said he was going to imply that. So that was kind of internationally, it's not just going there and looking birds and things. It's about the restoration. And there were people, I used to get called from Germany that, when is your birding tours going on? I'm visiting United States and I would like to schedule my itinerary according to that. So from STA 5, it slowly increased, all these brands talked about, and it's a really great program, and I was very happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes.
BJ.
And thank you, because you definitely were in on that first beginning. It was a big step. We don't realize that sometimes. Anyone else?
Yes, we have Margaret England on Zoom.
I would like to thank the South Florida Water Management District for working with Henry Glades Audubon with the STA 5-6 tours. We were kind of the pilot program for the other tours, so we just appreciate all that you've done to help us get people out into the Everglades restoration area so they'll see what is being done by the South Florida Water Management District. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Margaret, we appreciate you greatly because you've done so much for this whole program. I mean, as you said, you're the pioneer for it. You and BJ.
Okay, that completes the folks in Zoom. Thank you very much for the presentation. Brian, it was really great. Okay, next on the agenda is the Loxahatchee River Watershed Restoration Project update by Jeff Buck. He's a senior project manager at the district. And Jeff, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Again, my name's Jeff Buck, project manager for the Lox River Restoration Project, and tonight I'm going to be providing some updates on the recreational features and restoration work that we have planned for the project. Some of you may have worked with my former predecessor, Beth Kavinsky, who's left me some pretty big shoes to fill, so do my best to follow in her footsteps. So real quick, this is just an overview of the presentation. So I was going to start off with just a background and purpose of the Lox River project, and I was going to touch on the authorized restoration plan called Alternate 5R. Then we'll take a quick look at the existing recreational features for the Cypress Creek management area and discuss the upcoming restoration work and rec features there that will benefit the property. And then I'll wrap up with an integrated delivery schedule slide to kind of look at some of the design and construction timeframes for the project. So first off, the Loxahatchee River Watershed Restoration Project is one of many projects that fall under the SERP umbrella. SERP was a framework that was approved by Congress in 2000 to improve or restore the proper quantity, quality, timing, and distribution of water flow to the South Florida ecosystem. And so like other SERP projects, the Lox River project is a 50-50 partnership between the state of Florida and the federal government. So the purpose of the Lox River project really is twofold. First, it's to improve the freshwater flows to the northwest fork of the Loxahatchee River, which is a nationally designated wild and scenic river. And second, the project aims to restore the wetlands and watersheds that form the historic headwaters to the river. So the restoration efforts will be accomplished through an authorized restoration plan called Alternative 5R. And so you can see on this map here, this provides an overview of the project. And the project is really broken down into 3 flowways. Flowway 3 is in the north, Flowway 2 is in the central and southern portion of the project, and Flowway 1 is towards the south. These flowways are grouped together by geographic area. So starting at the north end, we've got Flowway 3, and that includes southern Martin County and northern Palm Beach County. In the following slides, we'll take a look at the project features in Flowway 3 that overlap the Cypress Creek management area. Flowway 2 consists of the C18 West impoundment and the 4 co-located ASR wells. There are some rec features that are planned for Flowway 2, but tonight's focus is really on Flowway 3. Flowway 1 consists of the existing G160, G161 structures, the Grassy Waters Preserve triangle restoration, and the M1 canal pump station. No recreation features I'd like to point out are proposed for Flowway 1. So this slide here shows a map of the Cypress Creek management area, which is operated by the district. As I pointed out in the previous slide, 3 of the project features from Alternative 5R will overlap this area. That includes the Gulfstream East, Gulfstream West, and the Cypress Creek Canal project features. I've got them labeled here for a quick reference, and this map here will follow in my subsequent slides. You'll notice, too, that the Cypress Creek management area includes a pretty extensive network of trails that traverse the property. It includes the Ocean to Lake Trail, which is a regional trail system. Hiking, biking, and horseback riding are all permitted according to the designated use for each trail. In addition to the hiking trails and the multi-use trails are 2 fishing locations in the interior portion of the property. So in the next few slides here, we'll just take a closer look at some of these project features in terms of the restoration work and the recreation features that are proposed. Copy that. Thank you. All right, so first up is the Gulfstream East and Moonshine Creek Restoration Project feature. This property was jointly purchased by the South Florida Water Management District and Martin County. It's roughly a little over 600 acres in size, and it's located east of I-95. The restoration work here that's proposed for the Gulfstream East property includes backfilling the former agricultural ditches and regrading the former citrus beds to return the historic topography to the property that existed during the pre-agricultural condition. We're also looking to rehydrate a former or historic tributary to the northwest fork of the Loxahatchee River. It's called the Moonshine Creek. That's located right down in this location. Historically, the Moonshine Creek used to run further north, but development over the years and changes to the landscape have kind of altered the flow. With the rehydration work for the Moonshine Creek, we're looking to install a weir at the east end of this ditch here called the Hobe Grove Ditch. And the concept is to raise the surface water and groundwater conditions in order to get a little backflow west towards the Moonshine Creek, which will eventually feed into the northwest fork of the Loxahatchee River here. You'll notice, too, on the map, in this area right about here, I've indicated the approximate location of the recreation features that are proposed for the Gulfstream East property. So this slide shows kind of a close-up view of where those recreation features would be located. And in general, they're located within the vicinity of the existing wet trail crossing that passes through the Hobe Grove Ditch. Currently, hikers along the Ocean to Lake Trail have to wade through a very shallow section of the Hobe Grove Ditch to get north into Jonathan Dickinson State Park. And typically, that's not an issue unless it's the wet season or we've got some elevated water levels out there. So needless to say, there is a need for a more reliable and drier crossing there. So the Lox River Plan does propose to construct a multi-use trail bridge in this location, and the bridge will serve equestrians, hikers, and bikers as well. Right at the southern entrance of that trail, multi-use trail bridge, would be a wooden boardwalk to connect the pedestrians and users onto the bridge. And in addition to the multi-use trail bridge and that boardwalk, we're also looking to construct an informational kiosk, shade shelter, and some picnic tables. So the next Lox River project feature is the Cypress Creek Canal restoration. This will be completed in two parts. And the first part really is the Cypress Creek Canal restoration work itself. And that'll include retrofitting or modifying some existing structures in Cypress Creek Canal, and it'll also include building some new structures as well. So in the very western portion of the Cypress Creek Canal, we have 3 existing structures that control the water levels to the Culpeper property, which is part of the Palomar Lands Natural Complex. And this work will involve adding telemetry to those 3 structures. On the eastern end of Cypress Creek Canal, we're looking to construct a new spillway, concrete spillway, which will be 2 16-foot bays. And along the length of the Cypress Creek Canal itself, we'll modify or improve the berm to improve conveyance to meet design storm requirements. So the second group of restoration activities for the Cypress Creek Canal restoration work will include constructing a spreader swale through the Cypress Creek management area. The spreader swale is about 4,900 feet in length, and it'll run parallel to the McDairy Road. Water will be diverted from the Cypress Creek Canal into the spreader swale, and from that point, water will sheet flow from west to east across the Cypress Creek management area towards the northwest fork of the river, and ultimately connect via the Cypress Creek tributaries into the river. You'll notice in this location, the recreation features are proposed kind of at the eastern end of the Cypress Creek Canal, which we'll take a closer look at next. So this map shows a close-up view of where those recreation features would be located. Again, they would be adjacent to this spillway, the S112 proposed spillway. And at this spot, we're looking to build another multi-use trail bridge, a fishing pier, fishing platform, a kayak launch and portage, a shade shelter, informational kiosk, nature study signs, dry vault toilets, and a parking area. Something I do want to point out about the significance of this kayak launch would be that paddlers could essentially launch from here and reach Trapper Nelson's historic property, which is about 1.5 miles to the east. They'd simply connect into the Cypress Creek Canal, which would feed into the Cypress Creek tributary, and then ultimately on to the northwest fork of the river. So the third restoration feature here, that's part of Alternative 5R, is the Gulfstream West Restoration Project. And that's located kind of in the north or northwestern portion of the Cypress Creek management area. This property was also purchased jointly by Palm Beach County and Martin County. And just like Gulfstream East, this was used as a former citrus grove prior to acquisition. So the purpose of the Gulfstream West project is to create a shallow flow-through marsh to attenuate water flows into the Cypress Creek Canal and to improve water quality into the Northwest Fork and portion of the Loxahatchee River. The flow-through marsh would consist of a perimeter levee to contain elevated surface waters, and it would be roughly about 740 acres in size, and the average depth would be about 3 feet or so. The interior ditches and canals would be backfilled, and the site would be regraded to promote a north to south sheet flow. Water would be pumped in at the north, and it would be discharged at the southeast corner via a notched weir that would have a variable rate of discharge depending on water flow. One other feature is a bypass canal that would run along the western edge of the flow-through marsh. And the bypass canal would divert water directly south into the Cypress Creek Canal when water levels are too high to receive new water into the flow-through marsh. So there aren't any new project features that are proposed as part of the Gulfstream West project, but there are lots of existing trails out there. From the map on the Cypress Creek management area, you can see that there's a network of trails that kind of run in through the interior portion of the property. So after the flow-through marsh is constructed, we would reroute the multi-use trail, so that way users could connect in to that existing tunnel underpass that passes under I-95 and the Turnpike, which connects into the Gulfstream East property and then on to Jonathan Dickinson State Park. Something also to note is that there is potential to incorporate the perimeter levee of the flow-through marsh as part of the Cypress Creek and Ocean to Lake Trail system. And if that were the case, that would add about 5 miles of trails to the management area. So this brings me to my last slide here, which is a snapshot of the 2021 integrated delivery schedule. And this shows the design and construction schedule for the Lox River project. For those who aren't familiar with the integrated delivery schedule, anything in black is federal responsibility, and anything in blue is the state. The dotted lines represent design phase, and the solid lines represent construction. The operational testing and monitoring period is represented by these diamond shapes here. So as you can see, it might be a little hard to notice on the presentation here, but the district is the lead agency for design and construction of all the flowway features in the Lox River project. Currently, design is underway for Flowway 3, and we're looking to kick off design for Flowway 1 and Flowway 2 in fiscal year 23, which begins next month on October 1st. Construction would occur over several years between 2023 and 2029, which would then be followed by the OTMP phase. In terms of the recreational features that we discussed, the Gulfstream East multi-use trail bridge would be the first one to go into design and construction, followed by the Cypress Creek Canal and Gulfstream West project features. We're still working on the detailed design schedules for those, but we expect those to begin design sometime in fiscal year 23 as well. So on a final note, just want to say that I think the Lox River project brings some much-needed restoration action to the Lox River and its historic watershed. And we're definitely also building on the outdoor recreational opportunities that I know the public enjoys for this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll start with any discussion in the room or questions. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Please say your name first.
Jeanette Henderson. I have two equestrian-related questions regarding your presentation.
Okay.
You spoke about putting a bridge over the Hope Grove Ditch
Yes.
area. Much as I like that idea, we love the Hope Grove Ditch because it's a great challenge for our horses. But the thing I'm concerned about most is if you do put a bridge, will you also leave some access so horses can get to the water to drink or cross via the water if they want? Because particularly when we do like the OTL trail, that's the only the only natural water that we arrive at on that entire trail. The horses have gone about a good 7, 8, 9 miles almost by that point, and that's a very good watering spot for them. So we want to be able to maintain that if we can when you build that area to allow the horses to still be able to get into the water to drink and pass through, or at least drink and then come back up to the bridge somehow. That's my first question. Do you want me to ask you the second one now, or let you answer that one first?
Sure, I'll just touch on that, and I think that's a totally reasonable request, and as we get into design, I think we can look to preserve some of those opportunities that are existing out there, and that could certainly be one of them.
Because that's a really fun ditch to go through on a horse. It's good schooling on that one. The other one is on the Cypress Creek section, where you come out through the top just before you go into what I guess the area you're going to flood, the cattle, what's a cattle ranch area up there now?
Yeah, it's under cattle lease right now. We call it the Gulfstream West.
Okay, Gulfstream
yeah.
West. And instead of, you're saying the OTL trail, instead of going up to the west and then north, you're going to divert it to the east, and then so it goes around the further end of that. Just as you get to that canal, there's a gate where there's a nice wide berm there along the canal, but the gate is only wide enough for people. It's not wide enough for horses, unless you have a really skinny horse. And I've been through there on my really skinny horse, but I've knocked my knees doing it. So I was wondering if there was any way that you might be able to put in a more horse-friendly gate so that we can go across that, because there's several turn-ins on the main trail system off that canal. And that canal goes all the way straight down to MacDairy. And I wish there was a way to get around it the other side, but somebody's fenced that off. But at least if we can get down toward MacDairy on that area. But right now, it's very hard to get. There's a big gate, and then there's a little, like, sort of pass-through gate that's barely big enough for hikers, much less riders. So if there's a way that we could widen that, that would be very helpful for us. We'd appreciate that.
Sure, yeah, I know we want to maintain the connectivity and the multi-use trail system, and that seems like a quick fix.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Tom, there's right there.
Yeah, on the Moonshine, you said you're going to flow the water from the east to the west?
Yeah, we're looking to kind of backflow that water a little bit down the Hobe Grove ditch so it connects into that historic tributary, which is the Moonshine Creek. It's been starved because it's been bypassed by the Hobe Grove ditch, which empties directly into the northwest fork of the river.
Right.
So
you'd backflow that with pumps or what?
No, it would backflow naturally with the weir. We would raise the water control elevation over that point. And so the water would force itself backwards into the Moonshine Creek. And I didn't mention it before, but there will be some improvements that are going to be needed right where the Moonshine Creek connects into the Hobe Grove ditch to facilitate more water movement.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else here in the room? Not seeing any. Yvette, how about Zoom?
If you'd like to comment, please raise your hand. Sir, I have no hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Jeff, well done. The Loxahatchee River, of course, is a scenic river, and it's just an incredibly beautiful area from top to bottom, or however you want to rate it. I happen to live very close to it in Tequesta, and it's just one of those treasures that we have. And if you ever get a chance to get you a kayak or canoe and float the thing, it's well worth the day. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. It's Kissimmee River Restoration Project and Headwaters Revitalization Schedule Update from Mike Cheek, Recreation Project Manager. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Newton. Yeah, my name is Mike Cheek. I'm a relatively new Recreation Project Manager here at the district. I've been here for 15 years, though, working on the Kissimmee River Restoration Project, so it's an obvious choice for presenting the latest on what's going on up there on the river. And yeah, like Jeff said, I've got big shoes to fill. I'm a hybrid between B.J. Cattell and Jerry Krenz, for you folks who have worked with those people in the past. So kind of taking some responsibilities from both of those people. Okay, so, well, first off, the good news is the physical form of the river has now been reconstructed as of early last year. So that portion of the project is now complete, the backfilling of the C38 canal. And I'll talk about some smaller ongoing restoration activities. 2 berm gapping projects down near Highway 98, some new Kissimmee River navigation signage, and then briefly touch on the Headwaters revitalization schedule. And so again, as I mentioned, the middle third of the river is now complete. That area has been, the C38 canal has been backfilled. Flows have now been restored to the natural historic channel in that middle third. And so that's the first main component of Kissimmee River construction. And the second major component of the project is the Headwaters regulation schedule, which is essentially managing how water comes out of the lakes Kissimmee, Cypress, and Hatchenhall into the restoration area downstream through S65. So that's an outstanding portion of the project. And then following full implementation of that Headwaters regulation schedule, we'll have 5 years of post-monitoring, where we monitor the 25 restoration metrics that were initially established to determine project success that we would evaluate over time. And that will be done for a full 5 years following full implementation of Headwaters. And so briefly, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the River Restoration Project. This is just a good representation of the C38 canal backfilling. Okay, as we know, there in the center, you see the C38 canal. This was dredged back in the 60s. All the spoil was pushed off to the side as it was dredged, essentially beelining water from Lake Kissimmee in the north all the way down to Lake Okeechobee, broke the river up into a series of 6 pools controlled by 5 water control structures, and cut the distance of the river in half from that 100 miles of meandering channel down to 50 miles essentially of a straight shot. And so that middle third of the river is backfilled. This is in Reach 2. You can see the backfill being pushed in. It's such a large scale, you can't even see the size of the equipment down there, but pushing this dirt in. Again, the spoil was available to push back in. This is a 30-foot deep, 300-foot wide channel, and it effectively drained the floodplain back in the 60s. So this 1 to 2 mile wide floodplain no longer functioned for the past 50-plus years. So now with this backfilling and the removal of 2 water control structures, once again, these historic channels receive flow for the first time in over 50 years. And then that annual flood pulse cycle is restored to the river as it sheet flowed south toward Lake Okeechobee. In the wet season, the river overflows its banks, obviously because of the capacity. The historic channel is not what the C38 is. Overflows its banks, the marshes begin to inundate, and it sheet flows south towards Lake O. And so, of course, you might have heard of the ribbon cutting ceremony that was last summer, where the Corps celebrated the completion of 22 miles of C38 canal backfill, reconnecting 40 miles of river channel, and removing 2 water control structures. And so just to touch on some smaller projects, restoration activities that are ongoing, this is down there where the US Highway 98 crosses the river floodplain. This road was raised over 15 years ago in anticipation of floodplain sheet flow, and there was 10 culverts put under the road. And we've noticed during high water events since construction, there's 3 culverts up here in this area that are flowing under the road fine, but they run to this upland berm indicated in red there, and the water parallels down 98 and doesn't get out into the floodplain until close to the river channel. And so to remedy that, we're going to do, the Corps is, starting as early as next month, they're going to put in 3 125-foot gaps to degrade that berm down to floodplain elevation so that water can once again sheet flow as intended on the floodplain and inundate these low-lying wet prairie areas and head towards Chandler Slough as intended. And if you see any equipment staging up on Highway 98, that will be as early as next month. This is near the Chandler Slough public access area to the Kissimmee River. And another small restoration activity ongoing is called the Hidden Acres Estates Ditch Plug and Berm Gapping. This is Hidden Acres Estates here, this neighborhood, mobile home park on the west side of the river. This is south of 98, by the way. A berm was left in place after restoration, in part to protect this neighborhood from floodplain inundation during high water events. But what we noticed during some things like after Irma, water was going around the backside of this berm, bumping into the adjacent uplands and then funneling down towards Hidden Acres Estates, dropping debris, sand into their boat basin. And then in addition to that, you can see these blue flow lines here. There's an L at the bottom of the berm that also diverted water off to the east, so it caused major erosional issues. And in some places going counter current to the historic channel there. So that's just showing where the debris and sand was dropped into the boat basin there, unfortunately. This is a shot after a high water event. You can see all this erosion, water going in this location counter current to where the historic channel was going. Instead of sheet flowing south, it was blocked by that berm. And to remedy this, the Army Corps of Engineers, also this dry season, will be putting in an earthen plug up here at the northern end of that ditch. It's going to tie that berm back into the adjacent uplands to keep water from funneling around the back. And then again, putting in 3 berm gaps here, about 125 feet in length, to once again allow sheet flow to go south on that floodplain and keep water from pushing off to the east there. So a vast improvement there. This is a really cool feature, the Army Corps of Engineers construction of this S69 Weir. This is the southern terminus of that C-38 canal backfill at the very bottom of the restoration area. This is looking south towards Lake Okeechobee. And it's a 3-sided weir. This northern leg is essentially securing the backfill, keep it from eroding as water from the floodplain drops into the 30-foot deep C-38 canal before proceeding on down to S65E and Lake O. And this is just another view up north looking upstream. And in this case, this was last summer. The only time it flowed over the weir, all it's seen is water coming over the northern leg at about 2,000 CFS that was coming downstream. And we never have seen water come over the east and west legs of the weir, which we might see shortly. We have increased discharge out there as of today. So as that water makes its way down south, we'll start to see the east and west legs of the weir also overflowing and dropping into the C-38 canal. This is what it looks like on the ground as of last summer, just with water barely creeping over that northern leg. And you can see it's a low-lying structure. It's only about a foot and a quarter off the floodplain, so it's very low-lying. And the east and west legs are slightly higher, about a quarter of a foot higher than that northern leg. So as water stages up, it'll be flowing on all 3 legs of that weir. So it looks like in the dry season, most of this year it's looked like that. And because this is a navigation hazard, it's not meant to be crossed by boats of any kind or walked on. The Army Corps is going to install this signage similar to what you see in the upper right here. 5 navigation signs around the corners of the weir and in the middle. And then some land-based signs for people hiking in from like the Lofton Road access area. Just to keep people off the weir. It'll be hazardous, especially when there's high flows. And there's a safety barrier here in the C-38 canal that'll be shifted upstream slightly to the base of the weir. So there is no passage at the weir, again, in boats, so beware of that out there. And this is what it looks like on the ground. It's pretty wild to approach it from upstream looking south. You can barely see it. It's like an infinity pool effect. The weir is in this shot. Water's just coming over the top. There's the northwest corner. And then the structure itself is in red, and the C-38 in the background here is approaching in an airboat from the north. So we did install some temporary signage until the Corps installs that more permanent signage. There's safety buoys out there, so be aware of that, especially at night. And if you want to bypass the weir, it's through the natural historic channel off to the west. The entrance is right here in front of River Acres. You go up the historical channel under the railroad bridge and on to Chandler Slough there to the north. And this bypass canal is gone. That doesn't exist anymore. It's just an older aerial. That was during construction. So again, you can come up C-38 right up to about here in the boat, and that's as far as you can pass that way. Okay, so another additional feature that's unique to some of the later construction phases of the river, we're adding riprap. This is the same shot of that same area where the erosion occurred. And in the later phases of construction, the Army Corps installed this riprap armoring to kind of book in that backfill to secure it and make sure we didn't have these major erosional issues occur again at these last stages of construction. And so this is another shot of another leg of that riprap, showing the main channel here going along there. It's probably about 10, 12 feet deep here in this shot. And then the C-38 canal backfill in the foreground, that's the shallow floodplain. And the riprap is visible, obviously, here for boaters, but then as the water stages up, this riprap will disappear underwater. So it'll be a hazard, especially for outboard motors as well as airboats. So there's going to be signage installed at these locations. Something similar to this, danger submerged rock. And these runs of riprap, just for perspective, are down mostly near Highway 98 in these white circles, or I'm sorry, white squares. These riprap runs are mostly concentrated down there. And there's one more up north here. If anyone uses the Istapoga Canal boat ramp heading towards Oak Creek, there's another run of riprap there. Signage will look like this, installed about a quarter of the way in on each of the riprap runs. And so, okay, moving on. So the first main component of restoration is now complete. Again, reiterating, C38 Canal has been backfilled, historical channel now receiving flow. But the second major component of river restoration, and equally as important to the construction, is the Headwaters revitalization schedule in order to restore ecological integrity to that middle third of the river. And what Headwaters regulation schedule looks like, it's this blue line in relation to the current or interim schedule, which is this red line here at the bottom. So this is what we're currently operating under as far as managing water coming out of Lakes Kissimmee, Cypress, Hatch, and Hall. And there's three things to notice here that are quite different between the two lines. This is the proposed headwaters up top in the blue. Across the bottom here are months of the year, January through December. On the left is elevation above sea level. And one obvious difference is this kind of craggy decline here in the dry season under the interim schedule. And what this is basically dictating is anytime water, or for water managers' interpretation of these flood regulation lines, anytime water meets or exceeds this red line, it's a mandate to get the water levels back down below that line as soon as possible for flood risk management. So you can see as we get any rainfall during the dry season, if it bumps us over that line, we end up feeding water to the river and then dropping down to this mandated 49-foot low period on June 1. And then the schedule bumps up 2 feet, okay, which obviously doesn't happen in nature. But this is, remember, this is not what the lake levels will do. This is just a flood risk management line, just deciding when that flood releases have to be made over that line. So again, one obvious change is that descension of the line from January to June dry season in the Headwaters schedule is a lot smoother, and there's a lot more operational flexibility in here for environmental releases to the system instead of flood control releases to the system. And the obvious second difference is the blue line is 1.5 feet higher in general across most times of the year. So for example, here in the wet season, all this June, July, August period, the lake stages will be allowed to potentially go up to 1.5 feet higher, weather permitting, before you go into flood control release mode. Then again, with a peak of 54 potentially in December. So all that additional storage, again, will allow more flexibility for operators to manage for the river for the benefits of ecological integrity, not just for flood control or water supply. And what that looks like on the ground, the difference of potential storage between 52.5 feet and 54 is just represented in this aerial photo here. This is the yellowish shading around these lakes, Kissimmee, Cypress, Hatch, and Hall. Represents about 11,000 acres on the ground, up to 100,000 acres of additional storage feet. Again, weather permitting. It doesn't mean you're going to get to these elevations just because you wish it. It's, you know, what Mother Nature allows. And because this is a significant change, the Army Corps of Engineers and the district have decided to implement this in a phased approach. So these increments is before we get to the full 1.5 feet schedule increase. So we're over here on the left currently. The Corps is developing this increment 1 proposal, which is an increase in lake levels, but not the full 1.5 foot, with tentative approval by June of next year. So fingers crossed we could implement this increment 1 by next wet season. Then water managers will evaluate how that's going, that increment 1, potentially initiate an increment 2 of maybe another increment of a similar amount, or if it's determined that it's going well, they could go straight to the 1.5 foot increase. And this is the general concept as of now. And by the way, the Corps is taking comments currently on this increment 1. And I'll give the website link to that. If you have any comments on just this incremental approach in general, the Corps is currently soliciting comments on that. So again, just to emphasize, you've probably heard before in other presentations, we have seen incredible responses out there on the river just from the physical restoration, the backfilling of the C38 Canal. That's distributed a lot of the water back out into the floodplain. We've seen incredible responses from wading birds, waterfowl. But nonetheless, a lot of this 25 restoration metrics are still not being met. And that's as expected because the hydrology is not there yet. That's the second major component of it. And so in the meantime, while we're waiting for the hydrology to get improved, we are continuing with land management practices out there. This is a shot from an incredible burn that they pulled off out there this March. Land Stewardship Group did a great job, over 1,200 acres, right near Starvation Slough. And you can see this really dramatic contrast between the burned and unburned sides of the river. And this is one of the largest burns we've had out there since construction began over 22 years ago. So it's really good to see that out there. Some significant consumption there of herbaceous grasses, nuisance shrubs. But again, if you don't hammer that with that second pulse of water to kind of double hit some of these exotic grasses and nuisance veg, your progress is very limited, okay? Some of these burns with exotic grasses can return within 3 months. You'll be back to the same coverage without adding on that layer of improved hydrology. So Headwaters is vital to get back to something that looks like this. This was a shot from 2002, right after the first phase of restoration. This much more open habitat, increased acreage of broadleaf marsh and wet prairie, more of this hemi-marsh open mosaic of open water mixed with emergent aquatics, some SAV in there. This is better for improved water quality, game fish, breeding, shallow water habitat, foraging for wading birds, waterfowl, and even public use access, just getting to these areas to use them, kayaks, canoes, airboats, et cetera. So we're looking for this open water type habitat in the long run. So again, the river restoration is still dependent incredibly on the Headwaters revitalization schedule, critical component. Our continued adaptive management of hydrology, this is kind of like micromanaging of how structures are operated, rates of change and things like that with releasing water to the river. And then our continued land management practices, prescribed burning, nuisance and exotic vegetation treatments, roller chopping, some of the land management activities we do on other properties while we're waiting for that increased hydrology. And yeah, this is the link. I'll leave this up for a second. It's advertised online as requesting comments on a temporary deviation from the Lake Kissimmee interim regulation schedule. So that's essentially increment 1 that I mentioned. So any comments on that? There's more background information on this link. And then specific comments are to be directed to this email here by October 7th. So they're soliciting that. So if anyone has feedback, any users of that area, or even they're seeking local knowledge, people that have lived up there or worked out there for years, and they're open for that input. So that's it. That's all I have. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you very much. I think this is the world's largest restoration of a river, and the Corps has been working on it for a long time, and a lot of good things have come of it, but it is so complex, and I'm glad to see some burning is going on, but Florida used to burn shore to shore every 5 years, and 2,400 acres is not going to really do the job out there. I wish I could tell you this is not going to cause some problems. The raising of the water in the Kissimmee River up and down has caused a lot of difficulties over the years. So it's something that people are going to be watching really close. I know I've been watching the forums, and it's bouncing around on the forums. The other thing is, the positive side of it is the worst thing that ever happened to Florida south of Orlando was when they channelized the Kissimmee River. Everything we've sat around in this room for 20-some-odd years and talked about started when they channelized the Kissimmee River and dumped all the basins right into Lake Okeechobee. 500 tons of phosphorus every year, pure phosphorus. I'm not talking about fertilizer. I'm talking about the pure stuff that if you put it, it would blow up half a city if you try. 50 years. 50 years. The lake has been destroyed with all this stuff coming down from this basin. And this is a step, a big step. But the damage has been done. When you look at the WCAs and you look at the water going out the the St. Lucie and the water going out the Caloosahatchee, and you look at the problems in the park, it all came from channelizing the Kissimmee. So this is a very, very, very important project to the future, for hundreds of years into the future. And I appreciate this presentation tonight, because it gave us a real understanding where we are today, where we're setting today. So with that, any questions or comments from the group here? Yes, Brad.
Brad Wyrock. The first question is, we have I have a pretty vast group of contacts that at some point would like to do we'll call it a river run, but they'd like to come out of Kissimmee and run all the way to Okeechobee and see what old Florida was, to see the restoration and to travel that river. But I don't want to go on record with saying, hey, folks, let's get this flotilla together and go till we know that we're at a point where we're channelized, we're safe, we have safety markers, we have those things, because we absolutely certainly don't want any uh-ohs. Do you have any kind of a time frame? And I know things change, things can happen, but something where we can start putting together something? Are we looking at 6, 12, 18, whatever months? I think it would be a great thing to invite users of all kinds of vessels, of whatever, to traverse this. Make a day or couple-day trip from there to Kissimmee and back, or excuse me, there to Okeechobee and back and see this. Have you got a time frame?
Well, the latest time frame is essentially it's open-ended at this point, but it's this dry season and potentially into the beginning of next wet season. So they could be mobilizing as early as February. And the process of it, they're going to be installing the signage with the barge. So that barge has to move slowly upstream, and they'll be pounding in those posts. So it's a time-consuming process. But there's no exact date, but the tentative date is February start time. And so there'll be, that's for the signage along the riprap areas.
So is that a 6-month process or 12-month process, or?
Well, I don't know the timing, to be honest. Yeah, we'll have to get that details from the Corps.
At some point, could you and I just communicate? Maybe we can get something shaded in. I mean, there's a big flotilla of people. I think it would be a great thing to do, and I think it's a wonderful thing for the district to be able to show what they've done and accomplished in agencies together. I think it's an important thing for the citizens of the state of Florida to be able to see.
Okay, yeah, I can get your contact information and let you know when there's a fixed schedule, and let you know that. So at least, yeah, you could advertise when the event might happen. And because, yeah, some of that is a little, you don't want people running out there necessarily right off the bat. Yeah, there's a huge group. It's kind of like the boatcade they used to do historically, right? Sounds like you want to do that again, yeah. And there was a huge group of jet skiers just this past weekend. I mean, just for, over an hour nonstop coming downstream. So it's a popular area even for people from urban areas, and it's a really beautiful area, remote, but really wild out there. So, yeah, I'll let you know about that.
Thank you. So secondly, while we're on this topic, I want to take just a minute, and since we're right here, first off, I want to say that representing Kissimmee River Valley sportsmen, I'm not even going to go into how many airboat clubs and members have sent me emails. 400 property owners at Port Hatchinahaw, businesses up and down the KCOL, and understand this, make this very, very clear. This is not a district-directed statement. This office and the folks here have been very, very good and very open book. We have a lady named Kathy LaMartina. Is she still here? That's unbelievable about communicating and trying to help, to the point when I was coming down to I think our meeting was in June, our last forum here. She said, hey, look, I live in Stewart. I'll meet you out on the interstate or somewhere. No, I won't be there tonight, but I'll meet you on the highway for coffee and discuss this, which is, to me, is exemplary from staff. But everybody here has been good. We have got to get a user forum for these lake levels. Now, you're talking to a guy that's lived on that chain of lakes, the KCOL, his entire life. Last Friday, I turned 53 years old. I don't know there's a lot more history in this room. Danny Brantley's got a pile of it, too. I understand drawdowns. I understand and support burns, prescribed burns, land management. Quite frankly, we've got a couple folks up there that you'd probably see protests if you tried to move Ungaritic or Vince Matera out of there. They do an excellent job. But we've got to get some input. We have beat our head against the wall with FWC. We've beat our head against the wall with the Army Corps. It doesn't matter which one of those meetings you go to. It doesn't matter which one of those surveys you go click and fill out. It's my belief, and I do say this publicly, they take those comments somewhere and find a giant shredder. I've gone to these meetings for years, gone to the hydrilla meetings with Ed Harris and all these things, and we ask questions. Donnie rode down tonight, first time he's come down here with us. It's a 3-hour trip each way. He looked at me and said, I don't know why we go to those things, because we'll ask questions or give them problems or things we'd like to know, and they never get back to you. What I'm asking here tonight, and I'll help, tell me where. And if there's an obstacle, sometimes it's easier for a citizen or somebody to move it than an agency. Okay? We get Tallahassee involved, but we get no response from these folks. I understand the graphs, I understand the drawdowns, I understand the logics and the logistics. I got that. But let me give you this one. Percolation in this state has changed. Filtration in this state has changed. The need to hold or filter or move water in this state has changed. I'd like to see the drawdown schedule that they use. I'd like to know when the last time that thing was updated. I got a bad hunch that the one they're using has not been updated or forecast for present or future population growth. What drains down out of Osceola and some of these other places into the KCOL is not being taken into consideration for the amount of percolation stuff we need. You know, the comment was made tonight, and I accepted it well from the person who's always been very gracious to us. It said, well, you ought to have some water up there now. Yeah, well, it's rained 15 inches in 2 weeks. That's not management. Hell, that's a miracle. That's what it is. Call it what it is. The lakes were drawn down this year too far at a time when we had a drought. Just because you have a drawdown schedule doesn't mean you have to use it. If you're going through a drought or some natural situation, turn it down a little bit. But I can tell you this, we're sitting on a ticking time bomb. The district is. It goes through your S65 lot. At the end of the day, that's who it goes through, no matter who told you to do it. You have residents of Port Hatchinall who have damaged seawalls, tens of thousands of dollars. I can show you folks out there who've got boats that blew your lower units. At one time, I lived right there on the water. Lake Hatchinall had 3.5 feet of water in the middle of it. That's not management by any agency. That's pathetic. There was over 100 feet of vacant shoreline with big old potholes in them. Those aren't potholes. Those were fish beds. And that was in April. And it stayed too low too long this year, and everybody betting on the rain. Well, guess what, folks? The climate in the world is changing. We're here to be glad to be part of whatever if you'll tell us how. But it's time we get some answers, and these folks up there get some answers. We don't get any from, the district's been good. Lord knows Kathy's great about emailing you back or trying to get them, but I don't think she can get them either. Because the specific questions I ask, somebody show me a copy of this drawdown schedule. I haven't got one yet. I don't think it's from in here. I really don't. I don't believe it's the district at all. But it's got to stop. We've got to have a public forum. This forum in here works awesome. But if we're going to control that chain of lakes, and it's going to affect everything downstream, then we've got to get some people on the same page. And I think we got two agencies that are not, well, I know we do, I'll just say it, that are not on the same page. And I'm asking for your help before things get bad. I've got neighbors up there who have full intent of looking for who damaged my seawall. Folks, there's repercussions of this. Camp Mac has cabins that have been canceled. Great Pammy's got cancellations this weekend in cabins. They had them Father's Day weekend, Memorial weekend, Labor Day weekend. You're causing negative economic impact to small business, and this has to stop. So I'm open to help whoever. Drew, I appreciate you sitting there nodding and going, yeah, man, we'll help. I really don't think the problem's in this room, but I'm asking this room to help solve this problem or tell us where to start.
Thank you. Thank you. I am a little disappointed the Corps is not here. They normally have somebody here, but that's a good question. Good comment.
They ain't got nobody to answer the question. They never answered a question for me in 20 years. That's why they're not here.
And one question, were you referring to when you say drawdown, you're referring to like FWC managed drawdowns for habitat?
We've been going through this with them for forever. Hey, why did we go down so far this year? What is well, we have here's the one I like. We have a prescribed, mandated, and there's a particular flow that they must maintain all the time.
Minimum flow.
Minimum flow. That's the word they use, minimum flow. I said, well, what if the lake's dry? Your minimum flow is 0. The comment doesn't make any sense. At some point, you have a minimum flow that's nothing because you've gone so far that the lake won't have anything in it. What I'm telling you is we need to go back and look at this, and we get 0 cooperation or answers out of them, and have been going at this for how long? When we go sit down with them, at least we get something out of here. And now we've done this wonderful restoration, and I got a bad feeling if we don't start managing and get actively involved with some kind of forum or get some people, get the record straight and get on tape about how we're going to manage this thing from S65 up, you're not going to believe what's going to happen from S65 down.
Okay, yeah, thanks for your comment. And just addressing on the low points of the lakes, but between both the current regulation schedule and the Headwaters regulation schedule, the minimum for shutting off flow to the rivers is still the same. That remains 48.5 feet. And we essentially almost got, we were there for part of this wet season where they weren't feeding water to the river. It went down to 0 several periods of the beginning of this wet season. And to your point, the beginning of this wet season started off very sluggish in the upper basin. So for June, July, August, we're below, actually May, June, July, we're well below average in the upper basin. So some of that drought we saw this year was weather related. And I'm not saying that's the answer to your question, but.
Well, let me give you this one. It doesn't matter what chart you got. Until 2 weeks ago, we had dry docks, dry boat slips, and a dry marsh.
Yes,
I don't care what, I'm not being rude, I'm just telling you, it don't matter to me what your chart says. Until we got 15 inches of rain 2 weeks ago, it was dry. Now look, rainy season starts in June. You see that big old vertical line you got right there in June? It doesn't look like that. That's not how the world looks. It's not how it looked this year. But yet it started raining real hard in June. We got a pile of rain in June, a pile of rain in July, a pile of rain in August up there. A whole lot of it recently. And that's not the way it looked. It was dry that whole time. What you need to do is take that low point and extend that sucker right on over to about August 26th, and then put your vertical line in there. But that's what it looked like this year. So, period, having these things like this, it doesn't matter. I can tell you what's happening out the back door. Now, we can go back and look at exactly the lake levels. Kathy gets them for me all the time. We can go back and make a graph of it. But I'll bet you actual doesn't look like that with a vertical line and stuff in it, bud, because I can tell you I go out the back door every morning at 5 o'clock. It doesn't look like that. So what I'm telling you is we've got to get some good, and it's not the district necessarily, accurate data and better management on it, because that's not what it looks like.
Well said. I think Drew wants to respond.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a forum is a great idea. I mean, so, and while I am not the Corps or FWC, we can certainly, and I'm sure if I called Eric Sutton or if I called Colonel Booth, they'd say, yeah, let's start talking to folks, right? And so we can start all that conversation and probably pull something together that's more routine, right, with all 3 agencies in the room to have that kind of conversation. This year, you're right. I mean, I looked at that lake level every day this year and prayed for something to happen up there, right? I know we abandoned the drawdown halfway through it. When talking with FWC, it rained, it got off schedule, so we abandoned it. But then it just didn't rain, it just kept not raining. And it got to a really bad place. What I'm liking about the interim schedule is it looks like that top line is just a foot lower, but it looks like that top line. So there's not that yank the lake down, mandate in the dry season. So hope, Mother Nature will do what she does. I can tell you that as we look at conservation areas, as we look at Lake Okeechobee, and as we look as a district at the Upper Kissimmee chain, the line is good information, right? But right now, we're above the line on the current reg schedule, and we're like, yeah, but let's stay above it for a bit. We got some more room. We've got land. We can get up higher, in the wet season and still be okay with folks. So, I mean, I'm very sympathetic to what you're talking about, and I want to create that forum because that communication forum, I've seen that myself. It's not there, right? So I hear you.
Thank you, Drew. let's give the people on Zoom a chance, because I know there's a couple waiting out there.
Yes,
Yvette?
sir. There's Mike Elfenbein, followed by Dr. Reinhardt. Oh, they switched. Dr. Reinhardt?
Hey, yeah, thank you. And let me just say, a few citizens have done more for Kissimmee River restoration and advocacy than Brad Wyrock. So, and Brad, I really appreciate all that you've done. And I'm disappointed to hear your frustrations with FWC. So you've got my direct contact information. So please reach out to me so I can help maybe address some of those frustrations. But second of all, I want to echo everything that Drew said. But number one, FWC doesn't regulate water levels. So, but we work with our partners, the Corps, who, not represented tonight, unfortunately, and the district. And we try to take opportunities for restoration when there are low water levels presented. And this was a year that we were looking at Kissimmee to try to let it get down and do some shoreline restoration and some muck removal. As Drew mentioned, that didn't work out because water levels started to come down, but then they stopped. And so those are some things that we can take advantage of, these opportunities. But that being said, we don't want to hamper restoration in the long run through any of those activities, but we want to take opportunities where they exist. So, Brad, if you're frustrated with FWC, please reach out to me and vent to me, and let me see if I can help you out. And Drew, I appreciate your comments on that. There's a global picture here that we're all working towards. So, thank you. And again, Brad, I appreciate all the work that you've done for the Kissimmee, and we're getting there, and it's looking fantastic. And I just have a lot of high hope for how it's going to go in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yvette, we have someone else.
Yes, Mike Elfenbein?
Hi, guys. No doubt Kissimmee River is probably one of the greatest feats of restoration, at least through my lifetime. And I was fortunate to be there the day that we celebrated that project, and fantastic work by the district and all the partners. Two things I noticed in that presentation that I wanted to take a chance to capitalize on was prescribed fire. That picture and the fact that you acknowledge the fire on the restored part of the river is fantastic. But I was a little concerned with the fact that it's been 22 years since there's been fire there. And in 22 years, we have 1,200 acres burned. I don't know if that's because the land didn't belong to the district for those 22 years, but certainly I think it's pretty standard across the state. Most landscapes are looking for fire at 3 to 5 year intervals. So I would like to encourage you guys to catch up to that. And then the other question I had was, there's an image that you put of what you'd like that restored area to look like, but the image was from 2002. I know the district is really good at keeping records, and perhaps the GPS coordinates of that photograph were logged, but it sure would be great, maybe at the next rec meeting or even at the governing board meeting next month, if we could have a side-by-side comparison of that exact spot from 2002 to 2022 to have a better perspective of exactly how wonderful this restoration project has been. But otherwise, I thought that was amazing presentation, and certainly a project we should be celebrating for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments? We are a little running ahead here. We don't shut anybody off here, as you notice. But any other comments at all? And I think these are all well made, and I think a little progress has been made tonight on this issue. So it's very much appreciated. And again, I wonder if the Corps is out there in Zoom, but they're nice folks. But as you say, their bureaucracy is double bad. They got the federal bureaucracy, and then they got the military bureaucracy on top of that. So they don't tend to always get back promptly. Okay, we're a little catch up, as they say. And the next presenter is a public use project updates by Dan Cotter. This is always very positive because it tells us all the good things that are happening. Thank you.
That's, having a little technical issue here, okay.
Where's the red dot again?
Right here. So you click on that laser pointer, turn it on.
Forward it. I can just forward it with this.
Yes, okay.
Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. Dan Cotter from the Land Stewardship Section. I've got some updates, as I usually do, that are district-wide across our 16 counties on a variety of new projects and expansion of some things and some information that was requested at the last meeting. It's great to see the attendance we have here. I haven't seen that in a long time besides what we have on Zoom and all the different user groups. Last meeting, we had some of the equestrians here, and they asked specifically about where can we go horseback riding and camping. While we've got numerous sites that allow for horseback riding, day use, literally hundreds of trails, we have 3 main areas where you can go and camp and horseback ride. So I just wanted to show those briefly because of, it was requested at the last meeting. One of the first areas is Kissimmee Management Area. This would be up, just south of Lake Kissimmee on the Kissimmee River. It's located on the west side in Polk and Osceola counties. And we've got several campgrounds there, but 2 there, you can actually bring your rigs, your horses, and camp there. They're fairly primitive campgrounds, but they offer about 12 miles of trails. There's fire rings and tables there. There is some rides through some wooded areas, and then a lot of the riding is on old spoil mounds adjacent to the river. But that's one area. The next area, real popular area, is Hickory Hammock Management Area in Highlands County. That's also on the Kissimmee River, further south than Kisso in Highlands. And that's a step above Kisso because not only can you bring your trailer and horse there, but there's a barn that is there with stalls. And you've got a ride that can take place all the way from let me get this laser pointer. All the way from Hickory Hammock, Equestrian Campground, all the way down to the Istapoga Canal Boat Ramp Campground. So real nice ride. That's through a lot of hammock and some views of the floodplain. That, again, has campground amenities and a barn there. And then the last one I wanted to mention, which is brought up a lot, and probably the gem of the district as far as equestrian campgrounds go, and probably one of the best equestrian centers south of, in South Florida, is the Dupuy Management Area, just over almost 22,000 acres in Martin and Palm Beach counties. And not only do they have camping facilities, but 3 barns, numerous paddocks, and there's a couple of those in that slide right there. And then the gem to this area is that besides the facilities, and it's got restroom, shower facilities, and shelters, and the barns and paddocks, is that you've got over 40 miles of equestrian trails. So that's probably one of the top equestrian campgrounds for sure that we do have. With all those campgrounds, just kind of an FYI, we get asked a lot about camping and how that works, and this is for all our campsites. They're available on a first-come, first-served basis. These areas, besides going there to camp and ride, you can just go there for the day and ride too. And along with all of our camping areas, you can go online at the site right here, go to our special use license program, which is no cost, and register and get a special use license to do any of the camping at those sites and our other sites. Okay, a couple meetings ago, moving down south here, this is off of Tamiami Trail, adjacent to the L29 Canal in Miami-Dade. A couple meetings ago, we had a presentation that talked about the replacing the S356 structure there that you see on the map. And as you may recall, there's a boat ramp right here, and there's one that's been in use for a while just to the east of that too. This structure here is going to be replaced in this area here, and that's to begin in mid-2023. So during construction, the existing airboat ramp, which is right here, will be temporarily closed, or at least temporarily closed during the heights of construction. Given that and the discussions that we had at that previous meeting, the district has decided to construct another airboat ramp to replace what's lost to the west, but more importantly, to replace and have a boat ramp that can be used during construction, because that construction timeline could be about 5 years. So just a little bit to the west of the existing boat ramp, about 100 yards or so, we'll be designing a new boat ramp that can be used during construction, and that'll also be a permanent boat ramp, airboat ramp that will be there for forever. So when the construction of the S356 is done, we'll have 2 boat ramps in place. Okay, jump into a different subject, talk about some campsites, some new campsites that we've established and are in the process of establishing. I know we've got some people here from the Florida Trail Association. We are going to, there is a long stretch down south by STA 56, all the way up along the L3, L2, L1 levee that is part of the Florida National Scenic Trail. It's great that we have the Florida National Scenic Trail on many miles of district lands down here and up on the Kissimmee River. This stretch, however, is a very long stretch of many miles of backpacking, hiking along the Florida National Scenic Trail. So we are in the process of establishing 2 backpacking campsites along this. One will be at the STA 56 public use area, and then further up along what we call the L1 East levee. There'll be 2 primitive sites there established for the purposes of those who are making long-distance hikes on the Florida National Scenic Trail. Those should be in place in the next month or so. A site that we did establish is at our Cypress Creek management area, which Jeff talked about in extensive detail. This is located in Martin County, and he showed you, all the trail routes that take place here that are multi-use. This orange trail over here is managed by the Florida Trail Association that connects up into Jonathan Dickinson, and we've established a new primitive campsite there. And thanks to the Florida Trail Association, the volunteers were able to clean up that area, and we were able to put in a table and fire ring. So that is a new campsite, a new backpacking campsite along that Ocean to Lake hiking trail. And one fourth site that we haven't established yet, and we wanted to let everybody know and any kind of feedback. I talked a couple meetings ago about the 4Es site and how we established a new airboat ramp launch there. It's become very popular. It's a parking area, a fishing spot, an area to launch canoes, kayaks, and also now airboats. What's nice about that big parking area is that we've got a real nice hammock right next to it. So we are going to establish 2 primitive campsites there, and that allow people to either pull in by vehicle or take their boat with them and launch from there while they're camping. So we'll give you updates on that on the next meeting, but we should have that established over the next few months too. Okay, jumping over to the West Coast, Crew, Bird Rookery Swamp Trail. For those of you that have been there, it's in Collier County, and beautiful place to go hiking and biking and wildlife viewing. There's 12 miles of old tram trails there that go through old Cypress Swamp. one of the important links is that there's a bridge there that was actually needed to be repaired and replaced, and we just finished the construction of that bridge, which is just in the photo, and now that allows those, those who are hiking or biking to make that 12-mile loop there in Crew in the Bird Rookery Swamp. Okay, and the last part of my presentation is on BOMA, particularly the FEB. I've mentioned in past meetings, and Mike, who just presented, has been real engaged with project, managers, engineers from both the district and Corps. When projects are under design, we make sure that our staff's there to make sure that recreation, access and features and facilities are installed. So just going to talk briefly on the BOMA. FEB, or Flow Equalization Basin, and also the Water Quality Testing and Treatment Facility. This is located in Glades County, just north of State Road 80, adjacent to the Loxahatchee River. The FEB is currently under design, and public use and access and recreation features, which are important, are being incorporated. Just a little background on the FEB and the testing facility. The purpose of the FEB, similar to other FEBs, is to store excess runoff and have a place for storage to reduce harmful releases. The construction for that is projected to be completed in late 2026. And then also there's about an 80-acre water quality treatment and testing facility, and that's just to demonstrate and implement cost-effective wetland-based strategies for reducing nutrient loading. And that's projected to be complete in early 2024. And as you can see from this aerial, you see the BOMA right there, and where that'll be constructed is adjacent to the Loxahatchee and C40 or C43. So the good news is, the project's under design, and we've already got some real good designs that are underway for public access and recreation to that, particularly to the FEB. A lot of good things are in the design, which you see in that drawing there. There'll be ample parking for the public, and for also, we envision this being a really great resource for the local community. So there'll be school bus parking there too, restrooms, a really nice boardwalk that goes out into the FEB, and along with that, some interpretation and kiosks, picnic shelter there, and also over here, a non-motorized boat ramp. Real similar to the A1 FEB, so you'll be able to launch canoe, kayak, or a small boat with a trolling motor. This is just a really outstanding, going to be an outstanding resource as far as recreation goes for the local community, the county, and anyone to attend. I look at this as being real close to what the A1 FEB has offered, and you see some of those photos in this shot of people out there canoeing, kayaking, fishing. There'll also be a boardwalk there for wildlife viewing and interpretation. The levee system around the whole project will offer hiking, biking, wildlife viewing along with the boardwalk. We look at this as a great resource for environmental education or guided birding tours by Audubon in that area. And then also non-motorized boating, as I discussed, similar to A1 FEB, fishing, be a great fishing resource, and some of the hunting opportunities that we offer at A1 FEB. And that's all I've got for tonight, if there's any questions or comments.
Okay, Todd, get a mic, please.
And thanks, Dan. I should know this answer, but I don't. How many days can you camp on, say, Dupree in a row?
8 days. 8 days.
You can camp 8 days? How
Yeah,
long do you have to be gone?
For 1 day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we do a youth hunt program out there all the time, as you know, there with
Yeah.
the kids with alligators or whatever.
Yeah.
And we used to camp at the red barn that you showed there, in that little area there, and kind of used to use that opening there to store some stuff there during the day or whatever. But I was out there, well, it was during COVID there, right at the beginning of COVID, when we did a hunt there. And And there was a lot of Canadians there, nothing against Canadians, but there was a lot of them there that seemed to like live there. So, I mean, they camp, they come in for that period of time, they leave, and then they come back. And, I guess you have to have reservations or whatever in your tag, how long can you apply for a permit to camp in there?
When you say how long, so we have an 8-day limit that you can do in a row, and then you need to leave that campsite for that day. And you've got 30 days, an individual can stay in all of our campgrounds for up to 30 days per year. And, this is one of the reasons why we have campground hosts too, and our law enforcement program is to monitor that situation so that we make sure people aren't going above and beyond that. And for any of you out there that see any kind of activities, whether it's someone overstaying their limit that went unnoticed or any illegal activity, please get to us. And our law enforcement officers from FWC or the county are really good about responding to that. Yeah, our campgrounds are real popular, as you know, and we keep those limits so that hopefully everyone gets a chance to use those campgrounds.
Yeah, I've heard that, somebody will leave and then after that 30 days or whatever, their wife will make the reservation and it just goes on and
Yeah.
on. And trying to camp here in the state of Florida right now is absolutely ridiculous. The state, you can, in a state park, you can book it 11 months in advance.
Yeah.
I dare anyone to go on here and try to book a campsite right now, 8 months out in advance. You won't get one.
Yeah.
So, something needs to be done. And I don't know, a lot of times you go out there and there's nobody in the equestrian area, like weekdays and stuff, maybe one or two people, but nobody else can camp in that equestrian side, but equestrians can camp on the other side.
Well, no, the equestrians, and if that's happening, let us know. But anyone with a horse should only be camping in the equestrian campground. And a few years ago, we because that campground's so popular and it's large enough, we have a non-equestrian area and we've got an equestrian area so that there's still always, we've got all those facilities that we've built and improved, the barns, the paddocks, the restrooms. We want to be able to have that open. But yeah, I'll admit it's we try to follow that and monitor that closely. People take and there's loopholes. Our last rule change, we came up with these 8-day and 30-day restrictions and may leave so that those wouldn't happen. But there are people that find loopholes, and we're always trying to improve on it. And we may have to come up with stricter criteria on those special use licenses, whether it's a person's driver's license or license plates, so that a family isn't taking advantage of that. But it's a good point, Todd.
Yeah, thanks. It's just hard for a Floridian who lives here. I'm not talking about myself, but all Floridians.
Yeah.
To go camping someplace in their own state, and it's impossible because of people that come from up north. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Todd. Okay, Bishop?
Well, I just want to say thank you, for one, with the 4E thing. That's a great move, and hats off. And Drew, I can't tell you how much of a fan you made me when you worked on that airboat ramp down there in 3. So, and I really appreciate, the prompt response. And I really am proud to say that we're probably going to have a boat ramp before construction starts and everything like that. And I see y'all have already been to work on your engineering, and I can't tell you how much I'm thrilled with that. But I will tell y'all something we've got to work on with FWC is, the airboat tourism industry, they're taking over our boat ramps, and we got to get a grip on that. So we've got to, I talked about this, I think, 2 RAC meetings ago, and when I was down there with y'all, I was really amazed at how much it's taken over those boat ramps down there too. So something we really got to get a grip on before it comes to ahead.
Thank you, Bishop. You don't know, but I told Drew, I said, that would line them at the door a few years ago because it would have just been disclosed. For 5 years, it's just closed. and it is appreciated. You guys don't understand how much we appreciate the way it is today versus when we started these things. It was incredible. There was some real contentious times, but it's just, we have such a great staff, and we've had some really good leadership, and it's all the difference in the world studying here than it was back in those days.
And it's really nice when we have Drew here. I mean, we know we got the top.
Hey, a lot of the fun out of it, though. Yes.
Dan, we're working through this same thing right now in Urgent Polk County. We have the same situation with camping. So God bless you. We're at 21 days, I think it is, up there, and trying to get them to scale it back. We've also suggested that we go to a Polk County rate, that's who paid for it, Florida citizen rate, and then an out-of-state situation. And I'm sorry, but that's just what we've got to do because we've got the exact same problem. So hats are off to you. On this boat ramp deal, Bishop, I feel you. We've got the same thing going on. And, you know, I just recently applied for a use permit, and we had to redo our insurance and stuff for the district. And it all meets and it's all fine. But I would love to see, as we've urged them in Polk County, they're doing the same thing with our ramps. From a gentleman that owns some businesses, I have a big problem with somebody using my county facility to run their business out of. I think you ought to have a business just like I do. But I definitely think we should get cracked down or find a way to solidify insurance and stuff from these people. I don't know how you can go at a district or any municipality facility, launch a boat, take people out for hire, and then not have proof of insurance or anything else. I have to have it to go out to Pressure Washer Pavilion in a couple of weeks. By gosh, you should have to have it to go out there and conduct business in a for-profit industry. I don't see how that sits right. Whether it's fair or not, it's certainly not ethical.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Say your name, please, before you speak, so it goes on the record.
Oh, got to hold it. Earl Mallory. Speaking to the commercial operators, I have an airboat. I airboat all over the state. I don't limit myself to the South Glades, the Middle Glades, Lake Kissimmee. I'm up North Florida a lot. I've got 3 different ramps where people have actually threatened my life that are tour boat operators that say, don't come here. They use the space we all pay for. One's in St. John's water management area, so it's not you guys. But when you called the management area, they said, oh, they pay to use that area. Well, I'm a taxpayer too, and I don't need my life threatened. And something like Mr. Wyrock says needs to happen.
Thank you. I think it's been so noted, the comment. Okay, let's try Zoom.
Yes, Mike Elfenbein.
Mike Elfenbein, Cypress chapter of the Isaac Walton League. I was very vocal at the meeting where we discussed the boat ramp loss on 41. So I think it's only fair that I'm equally as vocal to commend the district, Drew, and staff for working so diligently to resolve that and to create a resolution that lasts into perpetuity. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If I was there, I'd ask everybody to applaud you. So thank you guys very much for listening and acting. It is very, very welcome. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for all the work you do out there. You're on the West Coast, so he watches from Zoom. He does a lot of work, particularly Big Cypress. I think we've pretty well, thank you very much.
All right.
We're down. Yeah. I love it when I look up at the clock and we got 15 minutes and we've got one item left. We're down to the recreation discussion, we call it. And basically, what this is we don't have to do a round table. You can hold your hands up and Zoom the same thing. If you have any items that you would like to see at a future meeting, or if you have any final comments and within reason, because we are getting close to 8 o'clock. This is the time, and it's an open forum, so no matter what the subject, we're open to hear from you. I do want to make an announcement before you do that, because there is a change on the way the meetings are going to be run in the future. The next meeting, we have it scheduled for March 20. The midwinter meeting at the holidays just was not making a lot of sense to the staff and to everybody else. So what we are looking at doing is going to 3 meetings, equally distributed between spring, summer, and fall, so that they're 4 months apart instead of 3 months apart, basically. And I think that's going to work, and I know it'll work a lot better for the district and the staff, because it's expensive to run this thing. And when we come in the middle of the winter and everybody's off hunting, fishing, vacationing, and we're looking, I want to tell you, I'm pretty proud tonight. We got more people here than with the governing board meeting. We outdrew the governing board meeting. That is really good, I tell you. So just a fantastic group of people out there on Zoom. Everybody from, and my stargazers, I hope you're out there. And it is so important that we do attend, and not just when there's a problem. Thank you, horseback riders. We'd like to see you, like in March. And I can only also speak to the anglers out there, if there's any listening. Do you know that decomp is back on the table, and they might be filling in your canals down there below Everglades Holiday Park? So you need to come to these meetings, even though your issue might not be the hot one today. So let's just, anybody have any, raise your hand if you have any ideas for what we need to do. Yes, Bishop?
I have 2 issues. One issue between Lock 7 and Oak, what is that over there? What's the park? And not Indian Prairie, but the other Okeechobee. Between Lock 7 and Okeechobee on the bike trail, which I'm pretty sure it's probably has something to do. I talked to Dan about it a little bit already too, but there's and I want to just make it public, but there's stickers on that bike trail. It's a paved path, but it has these stickers on it, about a mile of stickers on it. And it used to be heavily used by people with bikes, and seems like everybody gets a flat tire. Maybe actually a couple bikes have been abandoned on it because they got flat tires, and people just went to walking instead. But the Florida Sportsman be interested in maybe spraying with a herbicide or something like that if the district ain't got the manpower, the Corps ain't got the manpower. But we'd like to work on maybe getting those stickers taken care of along that bike trail. It's a very heavily used, especially during the season. So that's one issue. But my biggest and my primary issue is I would like to see FWC rulemaking and the district work together in trying to implement a vessel flag rule. And basically, I'd like to take the same criteria that works in the Everglades and has worked in the Everglades since the Everglades was Everglades, where all vessels, once they get out of the channel or out of the lake, has to display a flag 10 feet above the bottom of the vessel. As you heard tonight in one of the presentations, the jet skiers are taking over the Kissimmee River. Well, that big old river ain't good enough for them. They got to do 60 miles an hour down our airboat trails too. And personally myself, I don't want to kill somebody, and I really don't want to hurt my $20,000 airboat over somebody doing something foolish. So I think, airboats have to fly a flag. They're the noisiest thing in the marsh. There's no reason why a canoe, a jet ski, and these mud boats, they're another issue. There's just a lot of issues where everybody is trying to use the same trail. And so once you get out of the river, that wide open canal or wide open lake, there's no reason why you shouldn't display a flag. And I'd like to try to work in getting this rule implemented on the Kissimmee chain of lakes and also the Kissimmee River. And we'd like to sit down as a group and maybe we could work out some language that work with everybody. And I already know the duck hunters are probably in an uproar, but I got something for them, Newton. It's very simple. We'll make it say that it has to display a flag when it's under power, and that does consider a paddle too, when I say under power. That way, when they're duck hunting, they could take the flag down because they're no longer under power. Because I know there's a little bit of static of that. Like I said, I think if we put our minds together, we could come up with a very good rule that will save lives, because it's just a matter of time. People have already been injured, people have already been hurt, agency people have already been hurt. I mean, it's just a matter of time before this gets carried away, and it's time we start taking the bull by the horns and getting something done with it that'll save a life.
Thank you. We have 3 over here, so who else? Do we have any more out here? Yes, Todd?
I think this question's for Steve Coughlin there. Steve, we worked years ago on opening Trail 6 there in the Corbett area, so we get to the L8. And then last year, some part, I've been out of this for a little bit with COVID and stuff. Not that I got it, but I just didn't want to get it, so I'm back. But anyway, we worked with you, and we talked about going down Road 5, and you said, no, we don't want to make that loop through there. And we didn't have an issue with it. They put a gate up there. I know people have used that Road 5 or whatever. So this year in the rules, it says that no buggies or FWC implemented no buggies or side-by-sides on the L8 or Indian Trails. I understand the Indian Trails deal because basically closing Road 6. And it'll give better car access and stuff like that to get to the L8 to go fishing and stuff. But who from the district asked FWC to close Road 8 to buggies and side-by-sides?
I don't know, I have to look into that, Todd. Tom, are you still on the line?
We can have them. Dr. Reinhardt, can you please unmute?
Yeah, let me follow up, Todd.
You can check into it, Steve, and we'll touch
Thing
back.
Yeah, I got to
Hey,
refresh my memory.
It's Tom. I had to wait for Yvette to unmute me. Thank you, Todd. Yeah, no, as part of the whole providing access to the L8, closing down the L6 to eliminate the Jeep clubs from doing what they're doing, that whole process required street legal vehicles only on the MO Canal. And then the L8 is actually owned by the South Florida Water Management District. And maybe it's an inconvenience for you if you're out hunting and then you suddenly decide you want to go fishing and want to drive up onto the L8. And I apologize for that inconvenience, but in the long run, we feel this is better for controlling the erosional issues of driving from Corbett up onto the levee. And certainly on the MO Canal, which we don't, nor the district owns, that's the Indian Trails. It's a part of a bargain that we've struck. We feel the increased access to Leon Moss for hunters who want to drive over there and then walk in it greatly outweighs the minor inconvenience of not being able to drive up onto the L8 from the area. If you're in the area on your buggy, you don't have to get up on the L8 to continue to drive around. So that's where we are. And I recognize the inconvenience it's created, but I feel like the added access is worth it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh,
I just want to close off, and Tom can listen, because we'll talk about it here in about 8 days or so, Tom. But in the Corbett area, buggies, we put a limit on ourselves where we basically said no unlicensed vehicles there after hunting season, all the way to archery season. We put those on ourselves. And now that the Jeeps have gone in there, the licensed vehicles, and torn up Road 6 when the buggies can't go in there or anything, we're getting penalized for this, you know what I mean? And the Jeeps can still, you know, I mean, they can go where they can go up on the Indian Trails levee, but nobody else can, you know? So it's an FWC matter. I just want to know from the district asked to have the L8 closed to buggies.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, Todd, but I'll look into it and give you a call.
It was you, Steve.
thank you. Say your name before you speak, please, and push the button.
Sorry, Newton, I figured you knew who I was. This is Mark Dombrowski. No problem. What I'm asking about is on the last meeting that we had, and I don't remember if it was Newton or Drew, had brought something up about a property where there's folks that are buying a piece of property up there, maybe in and around Hungryland. And I think it's either bordering, maybe like 9 Gems. We brought it up at the last meeting, if I can remember correctly. And I don't know where we went with that. I don't know, I think what it was going to be was the district was going to meet with FWC and some local law enforcement up there, but I've got some people that are buying or wanting to buy property in there, and they're concerned about where these governmental agencies are going with this, and I just wanted to see if there was any kind of insight or maybe put it on to another meeting.
I think you're talking about up there at Paul Mar, north of Hungryland. Yeah, so right now there's a neighborhood up there that's raising a lot of concerns about the activities that are going on the weekends up, in those areas. And it's in Martin County, the area you're talking about. And so the access to those areas is getting harder and harder. And the Paul Mar board just turned over, and I think right now they use the berms. Like a lot of the folks will drive out on the berms to get to those lands. But I think there's going to start to be restrictions on those berms on using motorized vehicles. And so the access to get out, it's remote, there's no access. And in order to get there, you generally have to traverse other people's properties. So it's a patchwork of acre lots. It's kind of a mess. And so if you're looking and thinking about buying land up there, I would certainly think twice because the access is going to get harder and harder to get out there with the new Paul Mar board, the way I see it. And Martin County, there's activities out there that the law enforcement's investigating and so forth to see what's going on. And then there's DEPs looking at activities where they're destroying wetlands and so forth. And you really don't know whose property it is because there's nothing surveyed out there. So it's just kind of, it's a difficult place to try to own land.
All right, thanks. I know there's a real estate company pushing that land on a lot of people, and I've had the question come up multiple times, so that's helped. Thank you.
I don't know why anybody ever buy anything out there, because you can't get to it without going across people's property, and it is a real problem. I live in Tequesta, Jupiter. I can tell you, not anybody's happy about it. It's a beautiful area out there, and it's just the worst thing that could happen to an adjacent piece of property. Let's stay on the Zoom, because these folks have been waiting patiently.
Yes, sir. With Daniel Watson.
Good evening again. I'll try to be quick. Newton, I know it's been a long night, and I do appreciate everybody for, especially
Mr. Watson,
everyone sitting
it's
up.
hard to hear you. Can you speak a little closer to the mic, please?
Sure, I apologize about that. There was a proposed rule change recently came out, and it is an FWC proposed rule change, but it involves recreational activities on the district lands. And I just wanted to kind of shine some light on the proposed rule change for limiting vehicle access in 3A North, the Everglades Wildlife Management Area. I think a while back we might have had some bad apples go out there and make a bad name for some of these vehicles, but a lot of the good stuff doesn't make it on the social media or the YouTube. No one takes videos of these wheel buggies or tracked vehicles picking up trash. In fact, the event that I think led to the proposed rule change started out as an Everglades cleanup. I don't represent any of the groups, but I'm a member of some of the Airbolt and half track and full track groups that have spent countless hours out there cleaning up invasive species and getting rid of Malukas, and even working with multi-agencies like BSO with rescue efforts. And we've all seen it before. Whenever there is a tragedy out in a place that's inaccessible, we've had plane crashes and stuff. A lot of the gladesmen answer the call. They go out there with their vehicles and their time and their airboats and help however they can with a lot of the rescue efforts. Not only that, it's an area that is inaccessible to many people. Without a vehicle, I wouldn't have been able to bring a lot of out-of-towners and my own children, 10 miles south of the levee into 3A, where it's beautiful. If you've been out there in that sea of sawgrass and seen the gators and the deer and even a panther every so often, it's an area that you can't enjoy without vehicle access. So I just wanted to let you guys know that there is a lot of good that comes out of the stewards of the land out there, spending a lot of time. It's a big area for FWC to patrol, but it is district land. And for the most part, those vehicles spend their time going up and down fire breaks, what are essentially fire breaks that lead to private camps leased on district land. And keep an eye out on the place. I think fires get reported first from gladesmen, and they do a lot of good out there. So I don't know what your stand is on the proposed rule change, but I just wanted to talk about some of the good that goes on out there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the notes have been made on your comment, and I'm sure that you will be able to hear something at the next meeting at the very least, or if you just contact someone at the district here. Okay, thank you very much. We have one more.
Yes, Mike Elfenbein.
Last comment. My input, if we're going to have 3 meetings a year for Rec, I'd like to request that one of those 3 be made on the West Coast. I know in the past we've done them in Fort Myers. It'd be great if we could continue to do that. Please and thank you.
Note made. All right, we are 2 minutes past the deadline. Unless someone has a real important thing to say, please raise your hand. If not, we're adjourned, and thank everyone for coming. A great meeting, one of our best meetings